Chapter 136. I can't talk to Hinata anymore. I need an opportunity to change the topic. Naruto looked at Sasuke. He praised, "Sasuke, your game was very exciting." Sasuke faintly nodded, and his mouth was not too modest. He replied, "It's okay." Then, Sasuke asked, "Naruto, how did you do that rain?" Pfft. Naruto almost spat out blood. After going around in circles, they hadn't even talked much about the same topic before they were back to square one. Do I have to promise Hinata that it will snow every day for 3 months when winter comes? If that's the case, Sandame Naruto will also destroy me, right? No, at that time, Sandame Naruto won't have anything to do with him. At that time, it will be 5th Naruto, Sister Tsunade. This is not very difficult. Water vapor will liquefy when it's cold, and clouds are a mixture of water vapor, water droplets, and small ice crystals. I just sent ice chakra into the clouds, and then the water vapor will liquefy when it's cold, collide with each other, and fall down, which is rain. Well, in short, it's the dry ice artificial rain method. It's just that Naruto replaced the dry ice with ice chakra. Hinata looked at Naruto with admiration. Wow! Clouds are actually a mixture of water droplets and small ice crystals. I thought clouds were cotton. Clouds are cotton? Naruto said that when he was a child, he also thought clouds were cotton, and the moon was a moon cake that could never be finished, for the people in the sky to eat. Sasuke nodded, and then continued to ask, "Then how did you send ice chakra into the clouds? Is your strength enough to throw the ice ball into the clouds?" Sasuke, didn't you notice that the javelin exploded after it rose into the air? Or did you notice it but didn't think about it at that time? Naruto continued to explain, "Well, it's not difficult. It's just like fireworks. I used the explosive force of the detonation talisman. It wasn't right to call it fireworks. To be more precise, it was 2 kicks. That kind of bang. Boom. The firecrackers exploded. Gunpowder was replaced by explosive charms. Of course, ordinary explosive charms would not work. In order to send ice chakra into the clouds, Naruto used a total of 2 advanced explosive charms, the kind given to him by the shop owner. Each of them cost more than 10,000 taels, and each explosion was equivalent to a Jounin's full-powered attack. Furthermore, the javelin was also made of pure steel. It could be said that he had spent a lot of effort on this. However, the effect seemed to be pretty good. At the very least, he had easily dealt with my love. As for why Naruto would spend so much effort to summon rain instead of using water escape, it wasn't that Naruto didn't know how to do it. With the amount of chakra that Naruto had, even if the conversion efficiency was low, it was enough to summon enough water to drown the arena. The reason why he didn't use it was that the water structure that chakra transformed into was extremely unstable. Once chakra's output stopped, it would gradually turn back into chakra and dissipate into the air. That level of water couldn't freeze my love's sand at all. So Naruto decided to use real water. And the result made him very satisfied. Sasuke seriously thought about it, and then asked again, "Then how do you guarantee that the javelin won't deviate when shot into the clouds?" Naruto thought to himself, "Would I tell you that I used Shadow Clone to transform into wings and attached it to the javelin, and then used Spiritual Link to control the javelin?" He despised him in his heart. He simply explained, "It's similar to the principle of an arrow. The stick that I shot has 4 arrow feathers on both sides to maintain balance." Arrow feathers? Sasuke nodded and understood a lot. "Sasuke, are you studying me and thinking of a strategy to deal with me?" Naruto smiled mischievously and said, "It's useless. This is a battle plan that I specially made to deal with my love. To deal with you, I have another plan." Sasuke and Naruto were the winners of the first and second matches respectively. When the match entered the second round, then the 2 of them would be opponents. Sasuke replied, "I won't let you successfully summon rain." This time it was Naruto's turn to be confused. He curiously asked, "Why not wait? When you fought against Shaoli, didn't you wait for him to open the 8 inner hidden gates?" Sasuke said coolly, "Because I have to win against you no matter what." Naruto raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to touch his chin. He said narcissistically, "So I've become the target that you have to surpass. Sigh. I'm too good. Even a wood-leaf maiden killer like Sasuke feels inferior to me." Sasuke's indifferent face was speechless. Hinata, on the other hand, was very proud of herself. It was obvious that Hinata took his words seriously. They chatted for a while. Then, Naruto glanced at Kakashi, who was still chatting with Haniwe. Sasuke won and Kakashi were chatting. He won and Kakashi was still chatting. Although this happy conversation was triggered by him, Naruto was still a little unhappy. Also, Haniwe-sensei seemed to be chatting very well. She didn't just nod like Naruto requested. She even asked questions and chatted happily. Was this fake acting becoming real, or was it an act? If the fake acting became real, then he would be the matchmaker this time. When the time came, he would have to make Kakashi suffer a few times. If it was an act, wasn't Haniwe-sensei a little too dangerous? Just as Naruto's imagination was running wild, Haniwe noticed that Naruto was secretly glancing at them. But she pretended not to see. But what she thought was completely different from what Naruto had guessed. Did Haniwe not watch Naruto's match? How was that possible? She came here today to see how Chakra fought with her scalpel. But all she saw was Naruto slowly wasting time on the stage. Then, he was lucky enough to wait until it rained before freezing his opponent. Although Haniwe didn't like fighting, she could tell that although Naruto won, it was a very lucky win. It wasn't glorious at all. This could be seen from the reactions of the spectators. So, she didn't know how to congratulate Naruto. And so, she could only play dumb. She pretended not to see. Haniwe-sensei, who had always been sharp-tongued, learned to play dumb in order to maintain her disciple's dignity. It was touching. As for Kakashi, it was wrong to say that he only knew how to chat. Although he had been chatting the entire time, he would always send a clone into the arena at critical moments. For example, when Tenma Maihua was about to announce the end of the match, he would appear in time to delay the announcement. And twice. Once for Naruto, and once for Sasuke. It could be said that he was worried sick. On the stage, Hinata Ningji used 64 palms of the 8 trigrams to seal Hand Bao's acupuncture points. Hand Bao couldn't use chakra and lost his ability to fight. Tenma Maihua finished the appraisal and announced, Hand Bao has lost his ability to fight. Hinata Ningji wins. Let's welcome the 4th contestant. The 4th match, Tian vs Akimichi Dingji. Only then did Naruto notice that after chatting for such a long time, these guys were nowhere to be seen. Where are they? Naruto asked. Sasuke replied, they felt that your victory was too shameless, so they were ashamed to be with you. So, when you came back from the end of the match, they moved to another stand. Naruto's face darkened. He asked coldly, is that the truth? Sasuke smiled playfully. It's a lie. Kai-sensei couldn't stand Kakashi chatting with a beauty and left in anger. His 2 students went to comfort him. Shikamaru and Ino went to buy food because Dingji was hungry. Naruto's expression instantly brightened. However, he didn't expect Sasuke to come back and say, but it's true that they were ashamed to be with you. Tian said so, and so did Ino. Naruto's face darkened again. A woman's heart was the most vicious. It didn't seem right to use it here. Whatever, these 2 girls were the most hateful. Chapter 137. Hinata Ningji exited the stage with a sour face. He walked down the stage in a hurry. Tian bumped into him on the stage and congratulated him. Congratulations on advancing. Hinata Ningji did not stop walking. He replied indifferently, there's nothing to congratulate me on. Then, he locked onto Guy's position with his Byakugan and walked towards Guy's stand. Tian, who was ignored, pouted and scolded. It's all Naruto's fault for making Ningji unhappy. That damned Naruto. How good would it be if he just lost? If Naruto lost, Ningji would definitely be very happy. Then, he would be very gentle to her. And not with such a sour face like now. Tian became angry when she thought of this. Ever since she met Naruto, the originally elegant Ninji Kuin had disappeared. Sigh. In the stands, Hinata Ninji did not return to Naruto's area. However, Shikamaru, Ino, and Dingji had returned. When Akimichi Dingji saw Naruto, the first thing he said was, "Naruto, I want to forfeit." Naruto had a confused look on his face. But then he thought about it. If Dingji forfeited, then wouldn't Hinata have to go on stage now? No. Even if she could not win, she had to go up and exhaust Tion. That way, Hinata would have an easy win. Thinking of this, Naruto said seriously, "You are the only member of Asuma's team to be selected. If even you don't go on stage, then Asuma-sensei's year-end bonus will be gone." Naruto had already confirmed the existence of the year-end bonus from Kakashi's mouth. Therefore, this sentence was not wrong. Of the 4 team leaders, Tooth Inuzuka, Shino Yomi, and Sakura Haruno's team, none of them had entered the competition. They were at the bottom of the 4 team leaders. At this time, if someone from Asuma's team forfeited after passing, their score might even drop. Then, Asuma would undoubtedly be at the bottom. Akimichi Dingji frowned. "Is it that serious? I don't want to go on stage because I'm the only one to advance." Akimichi Dingji felt like he was carrying the entire team's expectations on his shoulders. It was really stressful. He did not want others to be disappointed because of him. Naruto walked closer and patted Choji's shoulder. "If you win, I'll treat you to barbecue for a week." "Barbecue?" Dingji's eyes lit up, changing from his previous dejected aura. But when he saw Hinata, his demeanor changed again. He said weakly, "If I win, I'll have to fight against Hinata." "You and Hinata." Dingji did not finish his sentence, but his meaning was very clear. Naruto cheered him on, but in the end, he would have to fight against Naruto's female partner. That was 2. Naruto laughed and patted Dingji's shoulder again. "If you forfeit, I'll treat you to barbecue for 2 weeks. Shikamaru raised his hand and slapped his forehead. He muttered to himself, "God, I already thought that my evaluation of you was low enough. Why do you have to refresh my understanding of you again and again?" Ino complained. "He still has a log out with you." "It's already 0 with me." Naruto rolled his eyes. However, Choji was very smart and didn't show any dissatisfaction. Instead, he seriously considered Naruto's words and agreed. "Not only can we win the game without embarrassing Azuma-sensei, but we also don't lose our morality. I think this method is reliable." Shikamaru and Ino looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Where did the Dingji they used to know, who only knew how to eat pure and flawless food, go? Had he been assimilated by Naruto? Then, would there be a shameless fatty in Ino Shikacho in the future? As 2 people who thought they were very serious, Shikamaru and Ino could see the thoughts in each other's eyes. That kind of scene was a bit of a mess. At this time, Akimichi Dingji had been dawdling for a long time. In the arena, Tenma shouted, "The contestant of the 4th game, please come on." I repeat, the contestant of the 4th game. Tenma flipped through the list and found the contestant of the 4th game. He then shouted, "Akimichi Dingji, please come to the arena immediately." At this time, Tenma's heart was also tired. He realized that many of the contestants today were very slow. This kind of situation would never happen in the past. After all, the 3rd generation Naruto had said very clearly that the pace of the game had to be fast because there were many important people present. The time of these important people was extremely precious. If these important people were unhappy, Wood Leaf's future commissions would be greatly reduced. In fact, if people paid more attention, they would realize that every contestant who was slow was more or less related to Naruto. The slowest one was Naruto. The reason was that Yun Kai was still quite far away. Even if he entered the arena, he would still have to wait, so Naruto entered the arena very slowly. The second slow one was Hand Bao. The reason was that he met Naruto halfway. Naruto inexplicably apologized and persuaded him to surrender, which made Hand Bao angry. The third, Akimichi Dingji. He was originally going to forfeit, but was persuaded by Naruto. Fortunately, Tenma didn't know about this. Otherwise, who knew if he would be so angry that he would light Naruto on a lantern? In such a big arena, he shouted this and that until his throat was smoking. In the stands, Akimichi Dinji's face was serious. "Then I'm going." But Naruto suddenly thought of something. "Wait." Then he turned his head and whispered to Ino Yamanaka, "Can you establish a mental link between me and Dinji?" Naruto could do it himself, but he didn't want to expose himself. Secondly, without Dinji's cooperation, he could only establish a fake mental link. Although it would be somewhat useful, it couldn't compare to a real mental link. Ino Yamanaka's eyes widened. She quickly turned her head to make sure that no one was paying attention. Then she lowered her voice and said, "What are you trying to do? What you're doing is equivalent to cheating." Naruto laughed. "What's there to be afraid of? The first test is testing my cheating skills." Shikamaru rolled his eyes. How could this match be compared to the first one? The first test was to test one's ability to adapt during a mission. This match was to show off one's strength to the bigwigs. Ino Yamanaka didn't know if she should agree or not. She looked at Shikamaru. Shikamaru rolled his eyes and said in a low voice, "Don't look at me. I'm not the military advisor this time. I don't know anything." Naruto urged, "Do you really want your team leader to get a 0 in this Chunin test?" Ino Yamanaka gritted her teeth. At this time, the third urging came from the arena. "Akimichi Dinji, please come to the arena if you hear me. If you don't appear in 10 minutes, you will be disqualified." 10 minutes? Why did I only get a minute? Naruto frowned. He was very dissatisfied. If he also had 10 minutes, he would only need 2 or 3 minutes to wait on the arena. The competition wouldn't be so awkward. Naruto muttered in his heart, could it be that mysterious fire knows that Dinji is a fatty, so he gave him more time? Is that possible? When did the referees become so gentle? However, even though he was complaining in his heart, Naruto still hurried Ino. "Just say it. Do you want to do it or not? If you don't want to do it, let Dinji go up." Ino looked at Dinji and asked, "What do you think?" Dinji tapped his chubby face and said, "I think it's fine." Shikamaru rolled his eyes again. He thought to himself, it's over. Dinji has already learned bad things. The team in the future. As the team leader, he felt his liver ache. He hoped that Dinji wouldn't learn Naruto's death-seeking skills. He could still be saved if he learned to be a little crafty. Chapter 138. Akimichi Dinji stepped onto the stage. Ino Yamanaka found a secluded spot and closed her eyes to maintain the mental connection between Akimichi Dinji and Naruto. She was afraid that someone would discover that she was still covering herself with a blanket on such a hot day. However, Naruto was quite considerate. He set up a few icicles beside Ino Yamanaka to cool her down. Naruto said to Dinji through the mental connection, sweet potato, I'm potato. Please reply if you hear me." At this moment, the competition had just begun. Dinji and Tion were facing each other on the stage. Upon hearing Naruto's shout, Dinji couldn't help but burst into laughter. Tion didn't know that Dinji was laughing at Naruto's shout. He thought that Dinji was laughing at himself, and his expression turned cold. "Stupid fatty! Who are you laughing at?" Tion recalled that when he was studying, someone had laughed at him for having 2 sticky bean buns on his head. Stupid fatty? Fatty was a taboo word for Dinji, and now he had added the word stupid in front of it. Dinji felt that he couldn't control himself anymore. He had the urge to slap the other party flat. Naruto hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Don't be angry. Why are you bickering with a woman? Don't you know that women have long hair but short wit? As the relay station, Ino heard Naruto's words. The veins on her forehead throbbed. However, she endured it for the sake of Dinji's victory. Naruto continued to instruct, "Come, breathe in with me. Exhale. Yes, continue, breathe in. Exhale." With Naruto's persuasion, Dingji calmed down quite a bit. He opened his mouth to explain seriously, "I'm not a stupid fatty. I'm just a little plump." Tian looked at Dingji from head to toe and complained, "I'm saying you're fat, and you're panting. If you call this plump, then even pigs would blush when they see you." The corner of Naruto's mouth twitched. "Saying you're fat and you're panting." This sentence was once used by Naruto to despise Tantian. He didn't expect it to be used here. What was this called? Had he shot himself in the foot? Or was it the justice of the heavens and retribution? In any case, Dingji was enraged again. This time, Naruto changed his mind and decided not to let Dingji control him. He might as well explode when his rage was at its peak. The spiritual sharing provided by Ino Yamanaka was only a two-way voice connection. There was no shared vision, so Naruto opened the first gate of the 8 inner hidden gates to watch the match while using his spiritual power to command, "Dingji, you don't need to endure anymore. Since the other party's mouth is so foul, teach her a good lesson and let her remember." Dingji agreed wholeheartedly with this suggestion. He wouldn't be lenient with the guy who called him fat and compared him to a pig. Even if the opponent was a girl, he wouldn't forgive them. Well, at most, he would hit them lightly. But surprisingly, Dingji didn't rush to use ninjutsu this time. Instead, he asked Naruto, "How should I fight?" Naruto explained to Dingji, "Your opponent is good at long-range ninjutsu attacks. What you have to do is not to be hit by the opponent's ninjutsu, or to defend against the opponent's attack. In your case, if you use the meat tank, you won't be able to hit the opponent, and the whole body multiplication technique will make you a target. So, the best choice is to use the local multiplication technique. My suggestion is to use the local multiplication technique to strengthen your arm, and then stick chakra to your hand to pull yourself to achieve the purpose of fast movement." "Well, can you do it?" Dingji listened carefully, and then thought of an animal, and asked, "Did you say gibbon?" Naruto was surprised, and after understanding, he praised, "That's what it means. The hands are much more flexible than the legs. After the arm multiplication technique, you can use your hands to burst out with amazing speed and flexibility for a short time." The spiritual communication was very fast, and there was almost no delay, and the words were transmitted in an instant. Therefore, it seemed that Naruto and Dingji communicated for a long time, but in the real world, it was only the blink of an eye. And this was because Ino Yamanaka was in the middle, otherwise, it would be even faster. After confirming the combat plan, Dingji praised, "Naruto, I feel that this combat plan is really suitable for me. I have a hunch that my strength will be strengthened because of this, well, since it is very similar to Gibbon, then this combat method will be called Gibbon Combat Method." With that said, Dingji began to make hand seals. Local multiplication technique. Dingji's hands swelled at the same time, and it was not very exaggerated. A standing person's hands were just enough to support the ground. Then Dingji gathered chakra in his hand, squatted down, and pressed it on the ground. In the other grandstand, Tooth Inuzuka curiously asked, "Why is this guy lying down? Does he also know beast-like ninjutsu?" Akamaru next to him tilted his head, "Woof, woof." Shino Yomi and Sakura Haruno next to Akamaru quietly watched the game. But compared to the focused Shino Yomi, Sakura Haruno was obviously a little absent-minded, and from time to time, she looked at the other grandstand in the distance. She was looking at Sasuke. She didn't know why, but she felt that Sasuke was very unhappy, and his mood was very heavy. If only she could be in the same team as Sasuke. Well, even if there was a light bulb like Naruto, it would be fine. Looking at Naruto, who was watching the game attentively, Sakura Haruno felt even more uncomfortable. She didn't know when the person who was originally recognized as the last place had left her far behind. Maybe, she would never be able to catch up in this life. Shino Yomi was still watching the game, but suddenly said, "If you care about that guy so much, why don't you just go and say hello?" Sakura Haruno looked at Shino Yomi and was stunned for a moment. Huh? However, Shino no longer paid any attention to her as he focused on the match. After a month, Shino Yomi's injury has been healed, but he has become more silent. It was a completely different style from Inuzuka next to him. Sakura Haruno fiddled with her hair a few times, and finally made up her mind to walk toward Sasuke's grandstand. "Then I'll go over first," she said, as if talking to herself, and then turned to leave. The grandstand was not connected, but 3 separate long rooms with green tiles and cornices. So, she needed to go down 1 floor and walk through the connecting corridor. Tooth Inuzuka and Akamaru turned their heads to look at Sakura Haruno, and said, "Go quickly and come back quickly." Sakura Haruno was surprised, and when she looked back at Tooth Inuzuka had already turned his head to watch the game. Akamaru was the only one who let out an "awoo." For a moment, Sakura Haruno felt that her thoughts were too selfish. In fact, the current team is quite good. There are no 2 great geniuses, but 2 more companions who pay attention to her mood. I'm just saying hello, I'll be back soon. Sakura Haruno's footsteps have already left. Tooth Inuzuka rubbed Akamaru's head, and his eyes squinted at Sasuke. Jealousy. At this time, on the field, Dingji has already dodged dozens of attacks from Tian Tian. Ninja tools were scattered all over the ground as if they didn't cost anything. There was almost no place to stand. Naruto complained, "What a terrible terrain." He completely forgot who gave him this terrain. At the same time, he ordered Dingji, "Go to the wall, if you have the ability, let this girl shoot at the wall." Chapter 139. Dingji jumped on the wall under Naruto's suggestion. Chakra gathered in his hands and moved up and down like a monkey. At the same time, it also reflected the name that Dingji gave to this move, Gibbon Fighting Technique. In the spiritual link, Dingji laughed happily. "Naruto, I feel like I'm flying now." Naruto didn't say a word in his heart. "No, you're not flying, you just evolved from a fatty to a flexible fatty." So he commanded, "Dingji, how do you feel? How long can you last?" Dingji may be too happy. Thinking of Naruto's shout at the beginning of the battle, he replied, "Potato, potato, I'm a sweet potato, I feel like I can fly forever." Naruto's mouth twitched. It's not that Dingji called him a potato, but that he can fly forever. From this sentence, Naruto analyzed one of Choji's hidden attributes. Crazy people. In short, he's not reliable at all. In order to not let Dingji fool around, Naruto decided to start observing the timing to end the battle as soon as possible. It's just, how many ninja tools does this Tian Tian have on her? Is she a mobile arsenal? And why does she have so many chakra? Although the storage scroll can store ninja tools, every time it is stored and summoned, it requires chakra. From the beginning of the battle until now, Tian Tian has summoned ninja tools from the storage scroll countless times, and each time she summoned a large number of ninja tools. This kind of chakra consumption of ninja tools from the scroll is much more than summoning a single ninja tool. Hiss. Tian Tian's chakra. I'm afraid it's higher than Kakashi's. This is terrifying. It's just that this kind of fighting style makes Naruto a little bit uncomfortable. The strength of a ninja tool depends on the user and how they use it. The attack power of a normal ninja tool is different from that of a chakra tool. At the same time, Chakra's nature transformation ninja tool is also different from ordinary chakra. There were also differences in various attributes. Therefore, it can't be said that ninjas who only use ninja tools are weak. The best example was the warriors of the Land of Iron. However, Tian Tian's pursuit of quantity was obviously a very idiotic approach. It could be said that he had gone astray. Not only did he waste chakra, but he was also burning money. The timing seemed to be right. Naruto saw that Tian Tian's breathing rhythm had begun to become chaotic, and the frequency of his attacks had decreased significantly. However, what Naruto didn't expect was, Sakura Haruno came and suddenly locked Ino's throat from behind. Her eyes were burning with anger as she shouted, "Ino, long time no see." Then she lowered her voice and said, "I didn't expect a little bitch like you to sneak to Sasuke's side." Although she lowered her voice, the few people present, including Sasuke, Naruto, and Shikamaru, all heard it. The two women had been jealous of Sasuke for a long time, and Naruto had long been used to it. But, Mother****, why are you causing trouble now? When Sakura Haruno attacked Ino, the spiritual link was broken. Naruto turned his head stiffly and looked at the two idiot girls who were wrestling together. Sakura Haruno continued to lock Ino's throat. She raised her head and greeted Naruto. "Long time no see, Naruto. The way you fought in that match was really in line with your character." The corner of Naruto's mouth twitched. Was she praising him or insulting him? Well, Naruto had some self-awareness. Among all the spectators, the number of people who sincerely praised him was probably less than 5. Naruto's only thought was, "Bunch of idiots. Can you throw a javelin into the clouds? Can you rain? Can you defeat my love? If you were to face my love, you would probably be destroyed the moment you met him. Sigh. It's not your fault that you don't understand my excellence. After all, you're just mortals. But if you don't understand and pretend to understand, it means you're all idiots." Yes, Naruto was talking about the pink-haired idiot and the beige idiot number 2. Sasuke walked over to Naruto. He seemed to be very interested in the next match. He asked Naruto, "Who do you think will win? Do you want to bet?" Naruto didn't answer. He whispered, "Don't play dumb. If I play dumb, it shows that I'm low-key and cynical. If you play dumb, it only proves that you're an idiot. Don't tell me you don't know that the girl is here for you. You're too heartless. Also, let me tell you, being unromantic is a disease. It needs to be treated. If it's small, it means that you haven't matured. If it's large, it means that you're not a man." Seeing that Naruto was about to continue, Sasuke's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He said with a black face, "Naruto, I just realized that your mouth is asking for a beating." Naruto said calmly, "If you want to beat me, it means that you're angry. And the angrier you are, the more it means that I've poked your heart. Admit it. In fact, you're not a man, right?" Sasuke felt that he was on the verge of being blackened. Naruto's mouth didn't stop. He continued to ramble, "Also, let me tell you, if you want to beat me, it depends on whether you have the ability to beat me. If you don't have the ability to beat me, the result will be very, very embarrassing." The veins on Sasuke's forehead jumped, and his voice was low and hoarse. "You'd better shut up now, or I'll block your mouth with Chidori and make you unable to speak again." Naruto blinked, suddenly smiled strangely, turned to Sakura Haruno and said, "Sakura, Sasuke, Kuin said that he has something to talk to you alone." Sasuke's face twitched, and the chakra gathered in his hand began to change in the nature of the lightning attribute. At this moment, he really wanted to pierce through Naruto. However, Sakura Haruno walked over and said, "Sasuke, Kuin is looking for me." Sasuke took a deep breath, dispersed the chakra in his hand, and looked at Sakura Haruno. He wanted to say that Naruto was talking nonsense, but he suddenly changed his mind and looked coldly at Sakura Haruno. "Well, I want to tell you that I'm annoyed when I see you. Can you stop hanging around in front of me?" Naruto originally planned to take Hinata's small hand to the other side to watch the game, so that the two of them could have some space, but when he heard Sasuke's words, he couldn't help but stiffen. "Sasuke, Sasuke, you brat. You're ruthless." Sasuke didn't like Sakura Haruno. If he didn't like Naruto, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble, but the current situation was a pain in the ass. Wait a minute. Sasuke was so resolute. Could it be that he'd already met Orochimaru? Naruto's mind sank into his memories. This was because Naruto discovered that his thinking speed was much faster than usual in his memories. At the same time, he opened up Sasuke's memories and began to look through them. He finally discovered that Sasuke's mood was different from a month ago. It was somewhat gloomy. He didn't like to talk much. He always stood to the side and thought about things by himself. Although Sasuke was like this in the past, today was even worse. Most importantly, he actually rejected Sakura Haruno so resolutely. A scene flashed through Seiji's memories, "Because I have to beat you no matter what." That was what Sasuke said when Naruto came down from the arena. When he fought against Xiao Li, Sasuke waited for Xiao Li to open the 8 gates before fighting, but he wasn't willing to wait for Seiji to summon the rain. These messages didn't seem to have any connection. But Naruto smelled something unusual. Finally, he confirmed that Sasuke had already met Orochimaru. And he had the intention of leaving with Orochimaru. Naruto's monstrous IQ was online thanks to the memory bug. At this time, the result of the match came out. Tion finally missed all his ninja weapons and took the initiative to forfeit. According to the original script, Dingji would admit defeat, and then Hinata would win, and then, the first match of the second round, he would fight against Sasuke. Chapter 140. On the Field. Mystic Flame Genji swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva to moisten his dry throat, then took a deep breath and shouted at the top of his voice, Tion concedes, the winner is Choji Akimichi. Contestants of the fifth game, please enter. Akimichi Dingji jumped down from the wall and cancelled multiplication jutsu. He raised his foot and kicked away the ninja tools under his feet, cleared a foothold, and then planned to admit defeat. Referee. Gunma looked at Akimichi Dingji and said with a hoarse voice, "What's the matter? If you're asking for a rest, there's no such option. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame your bad luck for drawing 8 or 9. If you drew 7, you wouldn't have to work so hard. Rest?" Dingji really wanted to rest. He didn't feel anything when he was on the wall, but after coming down, he found that his shoulders were a little sore. As for not being able to rest in the middle, Dingji sneered. "Can't rest and can't give up, stupid." Then when he was about to say that he gave up, Naruto's voice suddenly sounded in his heart, "Don't give up first, fight with Hinata for a while, it's best to delay a little more time." Akimichi Choji came to a sudden realization and replied, Oh, you mean to pretend, right? You're so considerate." But he didn't know that Naruto couldn't hear his reply at all. Akimichi Dingji continued, "So the spiritual link is still there. If you didn't speak just now, I thought it was broken. Let me tell you, if you didn't speak just now, I didn't know how to fight. I thought I would definitely lose. Then I didn't think that the silly girl on the opposite side would throw all her ninja tools and directly admit defeat. Naruto, don't you think she's stupid? There were ninja tools all over the ground, and she could just pick up a few and continue to throw them at me, but she actually admitted defeat. If she didn't admit defeat and held on for 5 or 6 minutes, I think I would have admitted defeat. Running on the wall is much more tiring than running on the ground. I think I need to find some time to train. Although the Gibbon combat technique is good, it requires arm strength." Akimichi Dingji rambled on endlessly. It was unknown if he had learned this from Naruto. Also, Naruto's idiom was, "I'm telling you." Tesuke. They're also from the same mold. However, Naruto was destined to not be able to hear these nagging because of the pseudo-mental link. Poor Dingji still didn't know that he was talking to himself, chatting happily. After contacting Dingji Akimichi, Naruto contacted Hinata telepathically. "Go and put on a show with Dingji Akimichi. Drag out the match as long as possible. I want to discuss something with Sasuke." Hinata blinked and then shook her head. This was not even a sign language. If anyone else saw this, they would definitely be dumbfounded. However, Naruto understood. Or rather, guessed it. "You said you don't know how to act." Well, how about this? Your ninja weapons aren't very accurate. This time, you can use Dingji to practice. The field is full of ninja weapons. You can pick them up and throw them at the same time. Hinata blinked and nodded obediently. Then Naruto contacted Dingji. "You'll be fighting Hinata in a while. Continue flying on the wall. Didn't you say that you could keep flying? Let's continue flying then." On the stage, Dingji Akimichi looked at Naruto from afar. She raised her hand and rubbed her sore shoulders. Her heart spoke. She seemed to have told Naruto that she was tired. "Oh, right. I just told Naruto that I want to train my arms." What Naruto meant was for him to take this opportunity to train. As expected of Naruto, he didn't forget to train even when he was slacking off. "Got it. I will train seriously." However, by this time, the pseudo-spiritual link had already been broken. Hinata stepped onto the stage and announced the start of the match. Dingji made a hand seal. Partial multiplication technique. Her arms grew bigger and longer again and fell straight to the ground. Then, she jumped onto the wall and began to run in circles. The wind blew past and blew Hinata's hair. Hinata stared blankly at Dingji running in circles on the wall. Then, she suddenly remembered Naruto's words. Pick up the ninja weapons on the ground and shoot Dingji. Without hesitation, she raised her hand and grabbed 5 or 6 shurikens. Then, she held one and threw it at Dingji. Naruto was wrong about one thing. Hinata's ninja weapons were always very accurate. That was because she had a pair of very sharp eyes and a pair of hands that were very stable for body tempering. So, a shuriken flew past and shot off several strands of Dingji's hair. Dingji Akimichi was shocked. How could it be for real? But on second thought, perhaps Naruto wanted to train me? It seemed that he had to be more serious. Then, Dingji no longer ran in a circle. Instead, he moved up and down, changing his position from time to time. Hinata didn't care about that. She picked up the shuriken, kunai, and the large mad demon shuriken and started shooting. Speaking of which, that shuriken was very fierce and almost cut off Dingji's neck. As a result, Dingji ran even faster and dodged even more nimbly. Hinata's shuriken was getting faster and faster, and she was throwing all kinds of ninja tools. It was getting harder and harder for Dingji to dodge. But the audience was a little confused. Wasn't this what happened in the previous match? This was what happened in the previous match. Would there be a change of actors for the second and third episodes of a competition? Could the competition be any worse? At the same time, the audience was not the only one who felt that the game was strange. There was also the referee, Mu Hua Shenjian. In his opinion, this year's Chunin exam was a little strange. And there was also Hinata Ningji. He originally wanted to see how much Hinata had grown, and then let Hinata tell him that she could throw darts. And it was very accurate. There was also Hyuga Hayashi, who came to watch the game with Hanabi. This time, Hyuga Hayashi mainly came to see the performance of his nephew, Hinata Ningji. He had always felt guilty towards Hinata Ningji. It was on Hinata's 3rd birthday. Kumogakure Ninja came to Woodleaf on the surface to negotiate peace. But in reality, they were thinking about the Hyuga clan's Kekii Genkai, Byakugan. Therefore, on Hinata's 3rd birthday, they sneaked into the Hyuga clan's house with the intention of kidnapping Hinata. Then he found out. At that time, he was drunk and didn't care who the person was. He directly killed him on the spot. But he didn't expect to make a big mistake. The person he killed was the head of the Woodleaf envoy in charge of the peace negotiations. Kumogakure put pressure on Woodleaf, saying that Woodleaf killed the envoy. 2 countries at war don't kill envoys, this was the bottom line, and it would tarnish Woodleaf's reputation. So the final result of the discussion was the life of the person who was going to kill, which was Hyuga Hayashi's life. In fact, it was still just a cover to get the Hyuga clan's Kekii Genkai. Because Kumogakure Ninja asked Woodleaf to hand over his body to settle this matter. His brother, Ningji's father, took the initiative to die for him after knowing about this. The 2 were twins and looked exactly the same. If the 2 wore the same clothes, even Woodleaf people couldn't tell them apart, let alone Kumogakure people. In addition, his brother was a branch family member, and he had a bird that could completely seal the Byakugan. So even if Kumogakure got the Hyuga clan's body, it was impossible to get the Hyuga clan's Kekii Genkai. In the eyes of the Hyuga clan elder, this was a very good idea. But he felt sorry for his dead brother, sorry for Ningji. At one time, he also thought that this matter was blamed on Hinata, so he neglected Hinata. But today, whether it was Hinata Ningji or Hinata, he actually felt guilty in his heart. But he wasn't a person who was wrong. He didn't tell Hinata Ningji that Hyuga Hizashi was willing. He also didn't admit to Hinata that it was his fault for so many years. This kind of inner torment, in his view, was his punishment for himself. But, even so, he didn't understand why Hinata threw the darts, although it looked very accurate. Even if she gave up on herself, she shouldn't give up the Hyuga clan's taijutsu. Hyuga Hayashi couldn't understand this game. He frowned, and his face naturally didn't look good. Nonsense. Hanabi, you can't learn from your sister, do you hear me? Hanabi blinked blankly. She didn't know why her father said this, but she still nodded innocently. At this time, the leader of this blunder was trying to establish a spiritual link with Sasuke. It wasn't a pseudo-spiritual link, but a two-way one. Naruto wasn't proficient in this, so he asked the 9 llamas for help. Of course, the 9 llamas naturally paid for their appearance, and tonight's dinner included dessert. Sasuke, I'm Naruto, can you hear me? Don't resist my spiritual power, I'm trying to establish a spiritual link with you. Sasuke didn't resist, and Nine Tails' technique was good, so the spiritual link was quickly established. Then Naruto asked directly, have you seen Orochimaru? Chapter 141. Have you seen Orochimaru? This question was really sudden. If it weren't for Sasuke's calm temperament and perseverance, this question might have scared him out of his wits. If it was someone with heart disease, they might have died directly. Sasuke felt that he really had to thank himself for having a good heart. He took a deep breath and calmed his uncontrollable pulse. Do you know him? This sentence was asked from his mouth. Obviously, Sasuke hasn't had the experience of spiritual link. Naruto explained, you don't have to say it, just control your spiritual force. As long as you want to tell me this sentence, I can hear it. Sasuke tried and asked, like this. Naruto replied, yes, I heard it. Now let's continue to talk about Orochimaru. Shikamaru Nara, who was sitting in Ino's seat, glanced at Sasuke and Naruto on the side of the stands. Intuition told him that there was something fishy between these two, but he was too lazy to care. After Sakura Haruno ran out crying because of Sasuke, Ino went to comfort her. He sat here not so much to watch the game as to wait for Dingji to come back. Of course, the most important thing was that the icicle next to Ino's seat had a wonderful cooling effect. On the other side, Sasuke and Naruto continued to communicate secretly. After learning to communicate with spiritual force, Sasuke asked Naruto again, what did you mean by your previous question? Naruto answered concisely, literally. Sasuke looked at Naruto. From Naruto's expression, he could see that Naruto knew about Orochimaru and was convinced that he had met Orochimaru. How did Naruto know? Did Orochimaru find him too? Otherwise, it didn't make sense, because even Kakashi didn't know that he had met Orochimaru. Or was it Jiraiya who told him? Sasuke remembered that Orochimaru mentioned to him that Jiraiya wanted to accept Naruto as his disciple. But it didn't make sense. Although Orochimaru and Jiraiya were both Sannin of Woodleaf, Orochimaru was a rebellious ninja. If Jiraiya knew that Orochimaru was in Woodleaf and contacted him, why didn't he catch him? Or was waiting for an opportunity? Will be that opportunity? Sasuke's mind was messed up by Naruto's words. He didn't know how to answer. At this moment, Naruto answered for him. No need to answer, let's change the topic. Your reaction has already told me that you met with Orochimaru, or that Orochimaru found you. So you're already planning to leave with Orochimaru? Sasuke was stunned, and he didn't know whether to curse or not. Naruto wasn't asking him at all, but telling him that he knew all about his plans. Sasuke even suspected that this spiritual link wasn't mind-reading, right? If that's the case, Naruto is really insidious. So what's next? Send him to the interrogation room and make him confess. And then use him to catch Orochimaru. Sasuke's mind was even more confused. Naruto urged, say something, I asked your sister-in-law to kill time for you, not for you to be in a daze. Sister-in-law? Does he mean Hinata? Does that mean you are my elder brother? This time, Sasuke finally couldn't help but say, you are really shameless. Although Hinata is good to you, it didn't rise to a higher level, did it? Also, I am older than you, I am your elder brother. Although Sasuke and Naruto are the same year, Sasuke was born on July 23rd, and Naruto was born on October 10th, which is more than 2 months older, so there is nothing wrong with this sentence. They seem to have emphasized this issue before. Naruto replied rascally, Hinata Ningji is more than a year older than me, and now she still has to call me elder brother? Sasuke was speechless. He didn't know how to reply. He just mocked, "That guy hates you so much now that he wants to eat you, right?" Naruto said indifferently, "That depends on whether he has the ability to beat me." Then Naruto turned the topic back to Orochimaru and asked, "Have you really made a decision?" "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone else." Sasuke was helpless, and finally he said, "Yes, I have almost made a decision. If Woodleaf can't make me stronger, then there is no point in staying here." Naruto continued to ask, "What do you mean by almost making a decision? What are you hesitating about?" Sasuke was a little annoyed by the questioning, and he was actually very annoyed about Sakura Haruno's matter, so he simply replied, "There is no hesitation, I am waiting for a while, and then I will teach you a lesson, so that I can leave satisfied." Naruto nodded and sighed. "If that's the case, then won't you regret it for the rest of your life?" Sasuke's eyelids twitched. Why did he tell the truth? Maybe he was too annoyed, or maybe he felt that Naruto already knew. So now that he has admitted it, is someone going to take him away and detain him? For some reason, Sasuke felt that he was somewhat looking forward to it, but unfortunately, no one appeared to take him away. Naruto was still talking in his ear. "Actually, I am a little envious of you. To be honest, I also want to see the outside world. After all, the outside world is so big, and the village is so small." Sasuke looked at Naruto and didn't feel that he was lying, but he still asked, "Is that the truth?" Naruto replied, "Of course it is the truth. Let me tell you, the director sent me a letter last time, saying that he invited me to be an actor." Sasuke's next sentence was beyond Naruto's expectations, and it fiercely pierced his heart. Sasuke raised his eyebrows and said, "That guy also sent me a letter, but I am not interested in being an actor. Coincidentally, I heard that Hinata also received a letter." "Both of them?" Naruto blinked, and his bragging momentum instantly withered, muttering to himself, "How can this be? I thought I was the only one who received it." Sasuke was a little speechless. He felt that Naruto was joking with him. At the same time, he was a little confused and couldn't tell which of Naruto's words was true. However, Naruto immediately emphasized again, "But I really want to leave Woodleaf. In my opinion, ninja is a profession. It's okay to be a ninja for 5 or 6 years, but it's too hard to be a ninja for 30 or 40 years. Sasuke didn't care whether Naruto was telling the truth or not, and asked casually, "When are you leaving? Do you want to team up?" Naruto replied, "Not now, Orochimaru is not suitable for me. Although I also like to do research, flowers, grass, plants, animals, swords. But before that, I have to improve my strength first. I don't have high requirements. I just want to reach the level of Jiraiya Tsunade and Orochimaru." "Sannin level? This is called not high requirements?" Well, Sasuke can already confirm that Naruto is talking nonsense. Sasuke didn't speak. Naruto said to himself, "Well, I admit, I'm joking." "Huh? Why don't you mock me? Do you also agree that a genius like me is not high requirements?" Sasuke was silent for a moment, and he couldn't bear it and urged, "Let Hinata finish the battle quickly. I can't help but want to beat you now." Naruto shook his head. "Let them fight for a while. I still have something to say to you. After I take Tsunade as my teacher, I'll see the situation in Woodleaf. If I'm comfortable in Woodleaf at that time, I'll stay a little longer. If not, I'll run away." Sasuke frowned. "Is that true?" Naruto nodded seriously. Sasuke was even more puzzled. "Then why are you telling me this?" Naruto smiled and said, "Because I want you to be mentally prepared. If I leave Woodleaf in the future and have no place to go, you can help me." "This reason is very strong." Sasuke didn't know how to reply. Naruto kept talking in his ear. "By the way, let me tell you, Orochimaru has practiced a ninjutsu that can reincarnate. If you have a chance, you'd better learn it and teach it to me. I'm very interested in that ninjutsu because it seems to be able to make you immortal. Also, pay more attention to Orochimaru's good subordinates. Don't just focus on a few good ones. Even if they're weak, they have their own uses. There's also money. Don't be shy with Orochimaru's money. Put more money in your pocket. Also, Orochimaru has a lot of bases and so on. Don't leave out any of them. Know what they're used for. Especially the laboratory. I have a hunch that I may need it. Also, Sasuke's face darkened. Are you done? Naruto paused for a moment, then said, Then I'll say 2 last words. First, the reason why Orochimaru chose you is because he wants you to be his vessel for the reincarnation jutsu. He wants to reincarnate into your body, so don't be polite to him. Second, there's also the location of the Ryuchi Cave, one of the 3 holy lands. It's said that Orochimaru has been there once. If you go there, you can learn something called senjutsu. If you want to improve your strength, pay more attention to it. Of course, the most important thing is that I may need to go there when the time comes. Naruto wants to go to the Ryuchi Cave? Well, Naruto wants to go to Shikatsu Forest first. According to Naruto's speculation, the first Naruto learned senjutsu in Shikatsu Forest. Because this is just a speculation, to be safe, Naruto can't let go of the Ryuchi Cave. If the Ryuchi Cave doesn't work, then he will consider the toad of Mount Myaboku. Sasuke pondered for a moment and couldn't help but ask again, How much of what you said is true? Naruto said seriously, It's all true. I guarantee it with my integrity. Sasuke, your integrity is worthless. Naruto changed his words, Then I guarantee it with Hinata. Sasuke nodded, Okay, I believe you. But why should I help you? Naruto grinned, Because you owe me 3 bets. Sasuke's face darkened. Chapter 142. There was no doubt that Hinata won the 5th match. But in the eyes of the audience, her victory was somewhat inexplicable. One was jumping up and down on the wall, and the other was throwing darts on the ground. The darts weren't accurate. Every time, they either cut off a few strands of hair or cut a few pieces of clothes. But it wasn't accurate. Not even a scratch on the skin. In any case, Mai Hua Xianjian was dumbfounded. In the end, Dingji Akimichi surrendered, and then Hinata won. Because the process of the match was really strange, when Hinata and Dingji walked off the stage, the audience was as indifferent as Naruto's match. Watching the 2 leave, Ganma looked at the competition schedule and confirmed that the first round was over, and it was time for the second round. The winner of the first match was Uchiha Sasuke. Igaku Ganma nodded. His impression of Sasuke was still very good. He had a mind of his own, and his moves were swift and decisive. In his opinion, that was the demeanor of a ninja. And then, the winner of the second match was Uzumaki Naruto. Hiss. Ganma took a breath of cold air. In his opinion, this match was strange enough. One was the fastest, and the other was the slowest. This match won't be over again, right? If Naruto hid in the ice again, then he would be in trouble. Not only him, but Sandame Naruto might also be in trouble. With such a terrible match, would Leaf still have a mission to take next year? He was worried. Ganma looked at the 4 winners of the 4 matches. Uchiha Sasuke, Uzumaki Naruto, Hinata Ningji, and Hinata. He was most optimistic about the 2 people. One was Uchiha Sasuke, and the other was Hinata Ningji. In his opinion, these 2 people were very interesting to watch. He hoped that the finals would be what he wanted. Next, let's begin the second round. The winner of the first match, Uchiha Sasuke, and the winner of the second match, Uzumaki Naruto, please come to the field. Sasuke and Naruto had already walked down. After all, it was Naruto who made Dingji admit defeat. Naruto didn't cancel the mental link and continued to chat with Sasuke. What do you think your chances of defeating me are? Sasuke replied, 50%. Naruto mocked, You're quite humble. I thought you would say 100%. Sasuke did not answer. The 2 of them walked onto the field. Sasuke asked, Are you really not going to wait for the clouds this time? Naruto confirmed, I'm not going to wait. I just looked, and the nearest cloud will take half an hour to blow over. Sasuke breathed a sigh of relief. If he had to stand outside the ice and wait like my love, he felt that he would go crazy. Mio Gunma walked between the two of them. Her voice was very hoarse, as if her vocal cords had just been sanded. Do the two players have any objections? Naruto and Sasuke spoke at the same time, no objections. Under the mental link, the two of them answered in sync. Sasuke frowned and asked through the mental link, "The game is about to start. Are you not going to cancel it?" Naruto replied, "It doesn't affect anything. We can chat while we fight." Sasuke was silent. Mio Gunma announced, "The game begins." Sasuke's chakra had already condensed and was ready. Therefore, the moment Mio Gunma announced the start, chakra directly changed the nature of the thunder attribute, activated the blink technique, and then whipped a leg towards Naruto. The upper part of the leg whip was a copy of Xiao Li's physical skill, Wood Leaf Whirlwind. The speed was so fast that it could be described as a thunderbolt, not even giving Naruto a chance to release the shadow clone technique. The ice wall under Naruto's feet rose up, but it was not as fast as Sasuke's ferocious kick under the blink technique. It directly hit Naruto's face, but the scene of a nose bleed and teeth broken did not appear. With a bang, Naruto was blown up. It was the shadow clone technique. Sasuke's eyes widened. Shadow clone technique? How could it be the shadow clone technique? When did Naruto use the shadow clone technique? From the stands to the stands, he had been following Naruto's side, and he was sure that Naruto had not left his sight from the beginning to the end. Naruto disappeared from his sight, and Sasuke opened his Sharingan, guarding against Naruto's attack. At the same time, he asked Naruto, "When did you use the shadow clone technique? Where are you?" Naruto replied, "Sasuke-san, we're fighting, okay? It's cheating for you to ask so directly." Sasuke continued to ask, "We have been together since the end of your game. I can't think of how you escaped my sight and used the shadow clone technique. Unless the one with me before was your shadow clone. But at that time, it couldn't have been a shadow clone. Was it really impossible? Naruto could establish a spiritual link with him. Then, could he establish a spiritual link with a shadow clone? If the shadow clone's actions were controlled by Naruto, it was still possible. Of course, this was not important now. The important thing was, where was Naruto now? There was no one on the field, just as Sasuke was on guard. Sasuke didn't notice that the ice wall used by Naruto's shadow clone turned into a pool of water, quietly approaching him, and then a hand made of water stretched out from the water. With a flick of the hand, a water droplet shot towards Sasuke's back. Sasuke was instantly alert, and dodged the water droplet with the shadow clone technique. Then he saw the water droplet fall to the ground in a very natural parabola. It seemed to have no power at all. In the spiritual link, Naruto laughed and said, "It's just a drop of water, why are you so scared?" Sasuke suddenly thought of a possibility, looked at the ground and replied, "Are you down there?" Naruto replied, "Congratulations, you answered correctly, but do you know where I am?" Sasuke's Sharingan looked at the ground. Unfortunately, his Sharingan was not Byakugan, and it didn't have the ability to see through things. At this time, a sparrow landed in the corner of the field. No one noticed. Bang! The sparrow transformed into Naruto. No, to be precise, Naruto's shadow clone turned into a sparrow and back again. "Hey, Sasuke! I'm here!" The shadow clone shouted. Sasuke's Sharingan looked over, and Sasuke was sure that this was a shadow clone. Because the concentration of chakra was too low, he couldn't help but ask Naruto through the spiritual link, "Your main body isn't on the field, right?" Naruto replied, "How should I put it? Yes and no, wait a moment, I'll go up right away." This time, Sasuke was really speechless, although he didn't take Chunin's exam too seriously. But wasn't Naruto taking Chunin's exam too seriously? And when was he not there? After the end of the game? Or was it a shadow clone from beginning to end? If the one who defeated my love was only Naruto's shadow clone, then isn't Naruto too terrifying? It had to be said that Sasuke was thinking too much. When he defeated my love, Naruto was still in his main body. But later, he got the wind release body flicker from Shikaku, so Naruto found a place to practice the wind release body flicker. At this time, he was rushing back. From 100 meters below the field, he took the icicle elevator to go up. The so-called icicle elevator was a 1 meter thick, very straight hollow icicle. It was filled with water, and then there was a frozen bubble in the middle of the water. Naruto sat in the frozen bubble and slowly floated up with the help of the buoyancy of the water. Actually, Naruto didn't need to go through so much trouble. He could freeze the water in the hollow icicle and then use Chakra's ice attribute to cover his whole body. That way, he could move freely in the ice, and his speed would be very fast. The reason why Naruto used the hollow icicle, water, and ice bubble elevator. It could only be that he was too bored. Just as Naruto floated up in the self-made ice bubble elevator, Sasuke heard Naruto's voice in his mind, "The enemy will reach the battlefield in 10 seconds. Crush them." Sasuke's face was dumbfounded. 10 seconds later, Naruto floated up and said with a lack of interest, "Speaking of which, how about I let my shadow clone surrender for me? I don't want to fight with you, I feel like I'm bullying you." Sasuke trembled with anger. "Naruto, if you dare to let your shadow clone surrender, I'll clear your 3 bets for you." Chapter 143. He actually cleared the bet? Could he be any more shameless? Who did he learn this from? Naruto was very tired. He hesitated for a moment. At this time, he was still 2 meters away from the ground. The ice bubble had already reached the end. If he went any further, it would be pure ice. Sigh, let's fight. If he met Sasuke an hour ago, he might have been careless and lost the match. But now, there was no suspense. Naruto raised his hand and pressed on the ice bubble. Then, the ice bubble and the ice pillar froze together. The ice element chakra wrapped around his body. Naruto's body melted into the ice and rose up along the ice pillar. Then, he emerged. Just like a submarine's periscope, it twisted and scanned the entire arena. Sneaky, sneaky. Naruto appeared behind Sasuke. This was not a coincidence because Sasuke did not destroy the doppelganger. Therefore, Naruto's shared vision was still there. Naruto's body slowly emerged from the ground. It was as if there was a platform under his feet. Then, multiple shadow doppelganger jutsu. Bang! Bang bang! Bang bang! In an instant, the entire arena was filled with Naruto's doppelganger. There were probably more than 5,000 doppelganger. Sasuke stood in place and carefully watched his surroundings. At the same time, he asked with his mind, did the real body come back? All Naruto's doppelganger on the arena opened their fingers and pointed their palms in front of Sasuke. Because their movements were uniform, it looked like a huge net from above. It was very spectacular. Naruto replied, if I didn't come back, you shameless guy would have cancelled my bet. Wouldn't I have lost a lot? With that, a water pillar suddenly gushed out and rushed to a height of 4 meters. Then, it turned into a water membrane and spread out, covering the entire cylindrical arena. What was he trying to do? The audience looked forward to it. This water pillar was very beautiful and spectacular, so it was quite eye-catching. I think this should be a very powerful ninjutsu. Maybe it will cover the sky and the earth. Smash it down? I think it should shrink, like a fishing net, leaving the enemy nowhere to hide. I think he should be shooting ice arrows downwards. Didn't I say that kid has the rare ice escape bloodline limit? There were many different opinions in the stands. The next moment, the entire huge water membrane suddenly froze. The one who said that he would shoot the ice arrow said excitedly, "Did you see it? Let me be right. This is just the beginning. There will definitely be a big scene later. It will be a big scene like 10,000 arrows." Time ticked by, but the scene of thousands of arrows piercing through the heart did not appear. That water film. No, it should be called a layer of ice now. It was firmly covering that area, motionless and without any change. Moreover, it was frosted. It was not translucent at all, as if it was covered with a layer of snow. Was this a big move? It could be considered a big move, but it wasn't a big move for attacking. Instead, it was used to block one's line of sight. Naruto had also come up with a name for the move. It was called, "I won't let you see it. What can you do about it?" There was no movement for 3 or 4 minutes. In the stands, Sandaime Naruto frowned and motioned to the ninja next to him. The ninja made a hand seal with his right hand in front of his mouth. Fire release. Great fireball technique. The next moment, a big fireball with a diameter of 3 meters was shot out. Fire release. Great fireball technique was a ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan, but it was not exclusive. Some of the wood leaf ninjas who were good at fire release could also use it. However, when the Uchiha clan was still alive, few people used it because they didn't want to humiliate themselves. Now that there was only one Uchiha left, this technique became popular in the wood leaf ninja. The big fireball with a diameter of 3 meters hit the ice wall. It was very powerful, but it was useless. On the other side, Hyuga Hayashi opened his Byakugan and looked down. He saw more than 5,000 chakra dots distributed on the ice wall, forming a large chakra net. At the same time, the thick chakra also blocked the Byakugan's line of sight. What were those 5,000 chakra dots? Hyuga Hayashi had some guesses, but he still couldn't believe it. How could there be such a boring person in the world who would do such a thing with chakra? What was it doing? Under the ice wall on the field, 5,000 snow-white bats of Naruto were hanging upside down on the ice wall, maintaining the ice wall. It turned out that there were such boring people in the world. It could only be said that chakra was willful because there were so many of them. On the field, Naruto and Sasuke were facing each other. Naruto said to Sasuke through spiritual link, "Come on, don't you want to fight with me before leaving the wood leaf? Then I'll beat you out of the wood leaf, so that you don't have to be the Tion girls talking about you." Sasuke didn't pay attention to Naruto's nonsense, but seriously confirmed, "Main body." Naruto said affirmatively, "Main body." Sasuke's Sharingan reopened, and said seriously, "Okay." Chakra changed the nature of the lightning attribute, lightning release body flicker technique. For a moment, Sasuke's figure was so fast that only an electric arc could be seen. Then a whip kick, a roundhouse kick, a copy of Shao Li's taijutsu, wood leaf gale. This attack was extremely fast and ferocious. It was reasonable to say that there was no reason for it to miss, but it still missed. Sasuke stood in Naruto's position, and Naruto stood in Sasuke's position. Sasuke saw Naruto leave in front of his eyes after he had kicked out, but his body couldn't change the attack because of the inertia. If he had to forcibly change the attack, he would have to use a stronger force than the previous blow. At the same time, forcibly twisting the attack to double the strength of the attack, and getting injured before hitting the enemy is obviously not worth it. Moreover, that kick was already a full blow, and he didn't have the strength to twist it. There was nothing he could do. Sasuke stared blankly at Naruto, and his heart was shocked. He thought that if he made himself fast enough, as long as he could distinguish Naruto's main body, he would be able to defeat Naruto. Naruto said through spiritual sharing, "Sorry, I just learned it today." Sasuke. Naruto didn't say this sentence was already very painful. But now, it was pierced through. Sasuke took a deep breath and replied, "I admit, I'm not your opponent, but I still want to try." The two-tomo Sharingan was looking at Naruto at this time, and it was the best time to launch the Genjutsu. Sharingan. Magical Genjutsu, shackle technique. However, in the next moment, Sasuke saw a big mouth made of distorted carrots full of ominous aura biting towards him. That was Nine Tails' face, but it wasn't intentional by Nine Tails, it was just that Nine Tails' spiritual power subconsciously resisted. At the same time, the unstable spiritual link between the two was also broken with the riot of Nine Tails' spiritual power. Sasuke asked with horror, "What is that?" Naruto grinned, "Don't the people in the village call me Demon Fox? That's the main body of the Demon Fox." Demon Fox? Sasuke remembered that Orochimaru seemed to have mentioned to him. Nine Tails. It turned out that they really existed. Naruto smiled and said, "Do you still want to fight?" Sasuke gritted his teeth and said, "I still have one more move." Naruto smiled and said, "Then use it." Sasuke nodded, "Okay." Chapter 144. Under the ice sheet, Naruto and Sasuke were confronting each other. And above the ice sheet, the Umbu ninjas in the audience suddenly joined forces to cast a group genjutsu, and everyone who saw the feathers fell into a coma. This was a genjutsu released by Yakushi's pocket, Nirvana technique. Orochimaru made his move. Boom. Boom boom boom. The white pigeons around the venue, those Naruto's clones, were affected by the genjutsu, and chakra disintegrated. At the same time, Naruto under the ice sheet received the news. Did he make his move? I hope Hanyu-sensei and Hinata are fine. Sasuke is gathering chakra, and if Naruto guessed correctly, Sasuke will use Chidori. This is the first time Naruto faced Sasuke's full blow with his body, so Naruto didn't dare to be careless. In the past, the clones used to test Sasuke's attack were all dead. So, he needs to focus, extremely focused, and can't be distracted by outside, otherwise, it won't be his turn to worry about things in the future, because he will die. Then what will Sasuke use when he uses Chidori? Using Rasengan to collide with Sasuke? That's a way, but Naruto wants to try the wind release he learned from Shikaku. Chakra filled his whole body, and then, the nature of the wind attribute changed. Shikaku's secret technique, storm damage, power accumulation. No need to make hand seals, he just needs to connect the wind attribute chakra to his whole body, compress and store power, waiting for the explosion. Wasn't Shikaku teaching him the body flicker technique? Yes, it is indeed the body flicker technique, but this body flicker technique is really special. Sasuke's body was surrounded by an arc of electricity. His hands quickly formed hand seals, and his left hand pressed on his right wrist. Lightning filled Sasuke's right hand, and Chidori was ready to go. Both of them were storing power, and the overflowing thunder attribute chakra and wind attribute chakra began to collide in mid-air. There was the sound of metal gears rubbing in the air. It was a very unpleasant sound, very violent, like the sound of steel sawing that Naruto once heard. Bend, burst. Both of them disappeared at the same time, and the sound became sharper as they approached each other, and then, a ball suddenly appeared in Naruto's hand. Is this also from Shikaku's secret technique? No, just to be safe, Naruto suddenly compressed a Rasengan in his hand and then collided with Chidori in Sasuke's hand. Boom! The hissing sound turned into an explosion, and the two chakras were squeezed together, and then the explosion pushed the two of them to the side. Naruto used wind release chakra as a buffer and was pushed back 3 or 4 meters. Chakras was shot like a cannonball. Chizu's chakra. Naruto stood still and looked at the Sasuke shell flying away, and said to himself, I really didn't mean it, I was afraid that Chidori would cut my hand. Then I'll be disabled. Naruto's voice became smaller and smaller. Then he forcibly exonerated, I think Sasuke will also understand, right? If he knew that I threw such a serious match, he wouldn't be happy. He might even think that I'm insulting him. Ninetales said, what you should do now is to see if he's still alive. If he's alive, take the time to treat him. Naruto finally stopped his self-excusing mode. Sensei is right. Then wind release body flicker technique disappeared and appeared beside Sasuke. His shoulder was dislocated, his right arm was fractured, and this injury was a bit serious. Naruto wasn't very good at treating fractures. What to do? Find Hanyu-sensei. Teleporting to the ice wall, Chakra's chakra transformed into the ice attribute, and his body merged into the ice, and then popped out. The most eye-catching thing was the 4 purple flame formation barrier maintained by Orochimaru's 4 ninjas. Orochimaru was holding Sandaime Naruto hostage and chatting with him. What a warm pair of master and disciple. In the future, Sasuke and Orochimaru will be like this, right? Sasuke. He didn't care about Orochimaru and Naruto's matters. Naruto quietly returned to the stands where Hanatsuki was. Hanatsuki was unconscious, but she was lying down very stably. There was even a cushion behind her head. Needless to say, this was Kakashi's doing. Naruto looked again, but he didn't see Hinata. Naruto moved to Hanatsuki's side and prepared to carry her. "Where's Sasuke?" A question suddenly sounded. Naruto turned around and saw that it was Kakashi. Under the first gate of the Hashiman Tonku, Naruto could even see Kakashi's pores clearly. He asked, "This is a clone?" Kakashi nodded blankly. Naruto replied, "Then tell Kakashi that Sasuke is injured. I'll take Hanatsuki-sensei to treat Sasuke." Kakashi's clone nodded and was about to deactivate. Naruto asked, "Wait, have you seen Hinata?" Kakashi's clone replied, "She was taken away by Hayashi." With that, the clone deactivated with a bang. Naruto was relieved after hearing this. He quietly carried Hanatsuki to the arena. He formed a seal with both hands. Deactivate. The so-called genjutsu was to influence chakra and control the physical body's behavior. Deactivating the genjutsu was to use chakra to disperse the external force. Hanatsuki woke up and held her forehead. Then, she looked at Naruto with a stunned expression. "Naruto, you're injured?" Hanatsuki pointed at Naruto's face. Naruto touched it and wiped his hand with blood. "I'm fine, just a flesh wound." Then, he pointed at Sasuke and said, "Help take a look at Sasuke." It's this guy." Then, he called 2 clones over to heal himself. Naruto didn't only have wounds on his face. In fact, there weren't many intact pieces of skin on his body. These weren't left behind from the battle, but the side effects of Shikaka's wind escape. After all, it was a ninjutsu created by a tailed beast. It was a technique that violently compressed chakra. How could Naruto's mortal body withstand it? However, they were all flesh wounds anyway. Naruto didn't care. One divine palm technique was enough to heal 70% to 80%. Naruto's clones healed Naruto. Hanatsuki checked Sasuke. Such a heavy injury? Right hand comminuted fracture. This arm is most likely crippled. Internal organs are also displaced, and there is internal bleeding. 3 ribs are broken, but the internal organs are still intact. The lightest injury is dislocated right ankle. Every time Hanatsuki reported an injury, Naruto's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Sasuke's injury. Was that heavy? It seems that he shouldn't have added Rasengan to Shikaku's secret technique. Hanatsuki's brows wrinkled more and more. She said to Naruto, "Which ruthless master did this? It's better to directly kill him. Even if he is saved, he will be disabled." What a waste of this handsome little face. Naruto's expression stiffened. Sasuke will be disabled. Chapter 145. Is there really no hope? Naruto asked again. But there was still hope in his heart. If ordinary ninjas couldn't save him, then Tsunade definitely could. When Sandaime-sama received his lunchbox, it would be time to find Tsunade. Maybe she could make it back in time. After Hana finished inspecting Sasuke's body, she was about to disperse chakra when she suddenly remembered that there was still one place that she hadn't checked yet. Logically speaking, the ankle was wrapped in ligaments, so it was a very stable position in the human body. It was rare for it to be dislocated. If it was dislocated, it meant that the impact was extremely strong, and it was accompanied by a fracture. This guy's right foot was dislocated and fractured, which meant that the impact on his right foot was very strong. Then, she had to check that place. Thinking of this, Hana Fujita moved her hand between Sasuke's legs. She didn't need to touch his skin. Chakra, which had penetrated Sasuke's body, would directly reflect the injury in his mind. Sasuke, he was injured as well. Naruto watched as Hana Fujita checked Sasuke's position. He suddenly felt nervous. That was an important place. If he was injured as well, he would be in deep trouble, and even Tsunade might not be able to save him. He asked nervously, he was injured there as well? Hana Fujita pursed her lips and speculated, The person who injured him like this must have a grudge against him. This is definitely to end his bloodline. Did he have such a huge grudge against Sasuke? Naruto expressed that he didn't at all. He was even a good bro. It's over, it's over. This time I really didn't do it on purpose. That Chidori was so dazzling. I was so nervous that I gathered chakra in my hand, and then I used Rasengan in my nervousness. Is he really going to end his bloodline? Naruto asked more directly this time. That was because he wanted to confirm the specific condition. If that was the case, it would be better to give Sasuke to Orochimaru as soon as possible. Perhaps he could be saved. After all, Orochimaru knew how to clone. It wouldn't be difficult to transplant an organ. Thinking of transplanting Naruto's brain couldn't help but think of animals like dogs, monkeys, horses, cows, and so on. Should I transplant these? The scene was too beautiful to think about. The flowers in the wind dispersed, and the chakra in her hand replied, "Almost. If his injuries were a little more serious, he wouldn't be able to be saved. The current situation can be considered to have pulled his balls." Phew. Naruto heaved a sigh of relief. Hana-Jin looked at Naruto in confusion. "You seem very nervous. Why, you guys?" Hanatsuki's eyes darted between Sasuke and Naruto. The corner of Naruto's mouth twitched, and he smiled bitterly. "Teacher Huayu, don't joke at this time." Feng Hana shrugged. She glanced at Sasuke and said, "This guy is unconscious right now and can't hear what I'm saying. Why is he still acting like a doctor? Can't a master tease his disciple? That's right. Where is this? Is there a hospital nearby? We have to send this guy to the hospital as soon as possible." Naruto explained, "This is the venue for Chunin's exam, but Chunin's exam has been cancelled. Sannin and Otogekyure's ninja attacked Woodleaf." Hana's expression became dignified when she heard this. She hated fighting the most because once a fight happens, it means that there are wounded people, and wounded people mean that she has to work overtime again. Also, that special retirement institution may have to add new people. Hana asked, "So, what should we do now?" Naruto looked at the ice cover above and replied, "There are two choices. One is to stay here. If no one is bored enough to break through this place, it's still very safe. The second is to leave secretly and send Sasuke to the hospital. However, it may not be too peaceful outside. It's dangerous to take you out." Hana asked again, "What do you think is a good choice?" Naruto looked at Sasuke. "I don't care. It depends on his situation. If his injury will be delayed if he is not treated in time, then go to the hospital as soon as possible. If he doesn't need treatment in a short time, then it's not bad to stay here." Hana nodded and replied, "Then stay here. When I checked the injuries on most of his body, I simply dealt with them with divine palm technique. As for his hand, don't worry about it, because it will definitely be crippled." Naruto's mouth twitched. "Don't ignore it. Even if Tsunade comes, it's useless." "Hana-sensei, I think Sasuke's hand can still be saved." Hana shook her head and said, "I've seen this kind of injury a lot. Didn't I take you to that special sanatorium last time? It's hopeless. So many people haven't been able to save it. How can his hand be saved?" By the way, entering the sanatorium isn't a bad thing. The last time I took you to see a girl who lost her legs. When he goes in, I can be the matchmaker. That way, he won't be bored inside." Naruto's face darkened when he heard this. If Sasuke really went there, wouldn't Sasuke's fierce brother kill his way back to Woodleaf? He'll definitely kill his way back to Woodleaf. And he'll even kill him. If things really develop like that, I'll have to take Tsunade as my teacher. That way, Tsunade might be worried about their teacher-student relationship and save me. The image of Sasuke entering the special sanatorium was too vivid. Naruto couldn't help but imagine it. "Hana-sensei, if Tsunade is here, his hand can still be saved, right?" Hana nodded and said, "If it's Tsunade, it's definitely not a problem." There have been cases where Tsunade has treated this kind of injury and cured it. But the key is that Tsunade isn't in the village. Naruto said seriously, just because she's not in the village now doesn't mean that she won't come back in the future, right? Hana wanted to say that Tsunade didn't come back when there were so many people in the past. Why would Tsunade come back now just for this one person? But seeing Naruto's serious expression, she couldn't bear to discourage her cute and naive little disciple. So she said, "Don't worry, I've already taken care of the basic treatment." Then, in order to not cause any misunderstandings, she added, "I've also taken care of that hand. Your master, I always do my best to treat my patients. I didn't say it because I didn't want you to have too much hope. After all, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment, or even despair, after it's shattered." Naruto finally breathed a sigh of relief. But thinking about it carefully, it made sense. With Hana-sensei's personality, there was no reason for her to not do her best when she saw an injury. He was a little worried this time. Hana pointed outside and said, "How long will it take outside? If it's not more than 24 hours, there's no need to rush to take him out." Could Orochimaru and Sandaime Naruto possibly fight for a whole day? Even an idiot would know that it was impossible. By the time Sandaime Naruto sealed the area with corpse demons, the battle would be over. Naruto replied, "Let's wait a little longer. If it's not over by nightfall, I'll take you out." Hana was a pure medical ninja. She hadn't left the village since she was born, so she didn't know how to fight at all. Sasuke was unconscious and severely injured, so it was better to just wait here for it to be over. In fact, as long as Sasuke's injury could be cured, Naruto was happy with the current situation. At the very least, he had a reason to slack off. The two of them were bored. Hana looked around and pointed at the surrounding ice walls. "You made all this ice? That's pretty amazing." The ice that Naruto made covered almost the entire arena. Not only the sky, but the surrounding walls were all covered in ice walls that were several meters thick. In addition, there were several icicles that supported the ice above. At first glance, it was a world of ice and snow. No wonder Hana didn't know where she was when she woke up. Naruto nodded. "Ah, thank you for the rain. It allowed me to store a lot of water. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to make such a spectacular scene." Hana nodded, then asked again, "Who beat him up like this? If it's a wood-leaf ninja and it's not convenient for revenge, I'll put him on the blacklist of medical ninjas and help you vent your anger. How about that?" Medical ninjas blacklist? Medical ninjas had such things? Naruto blinked and asked worriedly, "What's that?" Hana explained, "It's someone who isn't liked. If that person comes to the hospital for treatment in the future, I can charge him double or even 10 times the money and give him medicine that's n times more expensive. How about that? Is that a way to vent your anger? How ruthless." Naruto had already decided that he would rather die than say that he was the one who injured Sasuke like this. He prevaricated, "Oh, I see. No need to trouble yourself. That person just died." Hana was surprised. Died? How did he die? It was a pain in the ass to make up a cause of death for himself. He was killed by the referee. At the same time, there were two other people in the stands who were also idling. One was Shikamaru, and the other was Ino Yamanaka. When the illusion was activated, the two of them stabilized their chakra in time to avoid being hypnotized by the illusion. Then, they lay down under the audience's chairs. Ino took the initiative to establish a mental link with Shikamaru and asked, "It's not good for us to do this, right?" Shikamaru replied, "What's not good about it? We're just genin. We're not even chunin. Also, Akimichi Dingji was injured in the competition. We can stay by his side to protect him." Ino replied, "Oh." However, Ino's heart was filled with doubts. She wasn't sure if Shikamaru was too lazy to fight, or if he had been influenced by Naruto and had gone astray. If it was the former, Shikamaru was still the quick-witted Shikamaru of the past. If it was the latter, Dingji had already gone astray. If Shikamaru went astray as well, Ino Shikacho would be finished. Chapter 146. In this battle, Naruto is slacking off, Ino Shikamaru is slacking off. But are these three people the only ones slacking off? No, Woodleaf. On a tall telephone pole, a pigeon landed there motionlessly looking at a man below. That person had a pineapple-like head, mainly because of the layers of bandages wrapped around his head. His hair was squeezed into a tuft in the middle by the bandages, and then spread out from the middle, just like the leaves on a pineapple. Unfortunately, it wasn't green. On the man's face, gauze is wrapped around his entire forehead, including his right eye, and the right half of his face. The sun is so hot. Isn't he hot? The pigeon on the telephone pole tilted her head and glanced at the man's clothes. The right half of his body is draped in black, like a monk's clothes, covering his entire right arm. From the outline, it can be seen that his right arm is hanging with gauze. It's like the posture of a broken arm. At this time, the pigeon thought of Yang Guo in her memory and couldn't help but complain, "I don't know if this old guy has an aunt." But the pigeon didn't look for long. The pineapple-like guy below suddenly looked up, and then spat out a needle from his mouth. The speed is extremely fast, and the next moment, with a bang, the pigeon was shot and exploded. Naruto's spiritual vision sharing stopped here. Nine Tails, who shares the same vision as Naruto, said, "This person gives me a bad feeling." Naruto sat cross-legged outside the cage, with his right elbow on his thigh, and his wrist holding his crooked head. He said, "Your feeling is right, because this guy is very dangerous for us." "How can it not be dangerous? The right eye contains the Koto Amatsukami Sharingan. If I remember correctly, there should be 10 Sharingan on his right arm. At the same time, the right half of his body was transplanted with Hashirama's cells. Therefore, he can still use Mokuton. Whether it's Sharingan or Mokuton, both are very effective against tailed beasts. It would be strange if Nine Tails felt good. Ninth Lamas, Sensei, there is one thing I don't quite understand, and that is, why are you being controlled by the Uchiha's Sharingan?" Naturally, he was referring to the bijou. In order not to anger Kyubi, Naruto used the general term, you. Nine Tails lay in the cage with his eyes closed as he replied, "How did you know?" Not long ago, Sasuke failed to use the Sharingan on Naruto. However, Naruto still believed that the Sharingan could restrain the bijou, which means that Naruto was not talking about the ordinary Sharingan, but the Mangekyo Sharingan, which is more advanced than the ordinary Magatama Sharingan. Naruto did not answer as he waited for Nine Tails' reply. Nine Tails opened his eyes and glanced at Naruto. Maybe he was too lazy to ask, so he directly said, "It's a very long story. I also heard it from an old man." "Old man? Is he talking about the 6 paths?" Naruto concentrated. If it was the 6 paths who said it, then the so-called story is likely to be the truth. Nine Tails continued. He said that a long time ago, there was no chakra in the world, but then a woman picked the fruit from a sacred tree, and since then, there was chakra in the world. Nine Tails glanced at Naruto again. "Doesn't it sound nonsense?" Naruto replied, "There are a lot of things in the world that are nonsense." Nine Tails' eyes widened a little. "For example?" Naruto laughed. "For example, Nine Lamas, Sensei actually likes to eat desserts." Nine Tails rolled his eyes and closed them again, using his actions to show that he was too lazy to talk to Naruto. Naruto urged, "You haven't said why the Sharingan restrains you." Nine Tails' arrogance came up, and he continued to not answer. Naruto pointed out the pros and cons. "This is very important because we are likely to meet a few people with special Sharingan, so we need to understand and come up with a countermeasure." Nine Tails opened his eyes again and said helplessly, "What countermeasure can you come up with? You said that there are a lot of things in the world that are nonsense, and the Sharingan restrains me is one of them." Naruto frowned. "An apple will fall to the ground when thrown into the sky because of gravity, and I can hear a dog barking because I have ears. There has to be a reason for everything, right?" Nine Tails was stunned. He felt that Naruto's first sentence seemed to make sense, but the second sentence, "You can hear a dog barking," Well, I won't find fault with you, I'm a fox, not a dog. In addition, you can hear me not because you have ears, but because of the existence of the spiritual link. Nine Tails finally said, "It does make sense, and it's because of the woman who picked the fruit. She ate the fruit and then grew a special eye. That eye has the ability to control chakra, and the source of the Sharingan is that eye. Let's put it this way, the existence of chakra is because of her, and that eye is her eye, so naturally, it will be restrained by her. If you ask why again, I can't answer. After all, in my opinion, this doesn't make sense." Naruto nodded and concluded, "So, because you are the manifestation of chakra, you are restrained by the Sharingan." Nine Tails added, "It's not just me who is restrained, anyone who has chakra will be restrained, and even if there is no chakra, anyone who is alive will be restrained. The audience who fell into genjutsu is the best proof." Then he asked again, "Now that you know what you want to know, do you have any countermeasures?" This was originally a sarcastic remark, but unexpectedly, Naruto nodded seriously. He replied, "I did think of a few things. Since the eye can restrain you, you just have to make it not open for a long time. For example, tear gas, if the effect is not obvious, you can use a strong tear gas. Another example is strong acid. I think no matter how powerful the eye is, it's just an eye. If it's an eye, it will be useless in the face of aqua regia that can melt gold. Another example is poison, volatile poison. Strong acid plus poison is also a good combination. Or you can try a strong light, a whole magnesium light or something like that shining on his face to see if he can open his eyes to see the sun. Also, you can hide without being seen by him. Strong acid, poison, strong acid plus poison, strong light, hide." Nine Tails blinked a few times before breaking into laughter. "You really can think of a way." Naruto continued to think, but which one should he use to deal with Danzo? It feels like it's better to use both as insurance. At this time, the battle outside was almost over. Because Orochimaru used Edo Tensei to summon Shodame and Naidame Naruto. Next, the only thing left was Corpse Demon Seal. A pigeon was looking at the roof of the spectator stand from afar. It was pecking at the master and disciple in the four purple flame formation on the roof of the spectator stand. There were also the puppets of Shodame and Naidame using Edo Tensei. After Sandame Naruto used Corpse Demon Seal to seal them into Shinigami's stomach, these two people were considered to be in his hands. Because the mask to remove Corpse Demon Seal was in his hands, what attribute would be fused with after devouring Shodame Naruto's soul? It should be the wood attribute, right? Wood was the combination of water and earth. With the water attribute, he would find an opportunity to fuse with the earth attribute after mastering ice release. Then, what about Naidame Naruto? Naidame Naruto didn't know would release, so he didn't know what he could fuse with, but according to past experience, it should only be a single attribute. Sandame Naruto didn't have a Kekii Genkai. Fusion was also one of the 5 basic attributes. In Shinigami's stomach, there was also Sandame Naruto. What would Sandame Naruto do with him? Fusion. No matter what, he was the father of this body, so it seemed too cruel to fuse with him. Let him disappear from the world? Then, what about the other half of the 9 tails sealed in Sandame Naruto's soul? Or should I learn Edo Tensei and use Sandame Edo Tensei, then take back the 9 tails and undo it? In addition to Sandame Naruto's soul, there would also be Orochimaru's hands in Shinigami's stomach. How should I deal with this? Make a deal with Orochimaru? What should I trade? Redeem Sasuke? Hee, that seems like an interesting idea. Naruto was looking forward to the future. Perhaps one day, he would show off in front of Sasuke and say, "Naruto, your uncle Naruto has redeemed you." The scene was so vivid. I can't think about it, it hurts my eyes. But speaking of Sasuke, Naruto just checked Sasuke's body, and there was no curse mark left by Orochimaru. Then, when would Orochimaru make his move? Before Tsunade returns? Or after? If Orochimaru found out that Sasuke's hands were crippled, would he change his mind? But he wouldn't come to snatch him now, right? Thinking of this, Naruto carefully looked around. The ice wall didn't receive any strong attacks. Orochimaru probably wouldn't make a move now. At the same time, outside the ice wall, a small snake with a pair of sharp fangs circled around the arena. It wanted to enter the arena, but it couldn't find the entrance. After circling a few times, the small snake was so angry that it opened its mouth and bit the ice wall. Then, it shivered, and the ice reached its teeth. It licked its teeth again. Oh no, the cold air on its teeth is too cold, and its tongue was frozen when it licked it. For a moment, the small snake's heart was filled with sadness. It just wanted to go in and find an opportunity to bite someone. It originally thought that it would be a simple task, but it didn't expect it to be so difficult. Inside the ice wall, Hana Kazumi's body was shivering, and after a long time, she finally said, "Naruto, can you raise the temperature a little? It's a little cold." Naruto recovered from his daze. "Ah? What did you say?" Chapter 147. Perhaps because of 9 tails, my love didn't participate in this battle. And with Shikaku as the director and my love as the actor, they directed a drama where Shikaku was out of control. It's not exactly a drama, because Shikaku was playing for real. My love in pain hugged his head and curled up on the ground, trembling all over. My love sensei, Baki, stared at my love. What's going on? Why did Shikaku suddenly bite back? My love was in so much pain that he couldn't speak at all. Shikaku was a bit ruthless. Hanbao and Kankuro were also anxious. My love was fine just now, but after the battle broke out, my love suddenly became like this. They didn't know what happened at all. Baki gritted his teeth. Damn it! My love is Sanen's secret weapon, in a sense, more important than this battle. Action terminated. You take my love away for a while. Hanbao looked at Baki worriedly. What about you, sensei? Kakashi appeared not far away. Baki sensed Kakashi's existence and turned around. I want to join the battle, you guys withdraw first. Kankuro and Hanbao took my love and left quickly. Kakashi glanced at the 3 figures, then retracted his gaze and looked at Baki. Baki was also on guard against Kakashi, but he glanced at Sandaime Naruto and Orochimaru on the roof from the corner of his eyes. 4th Kazekage turned out to be Orochimaru in disguise. Then what about 4th Kazekage? On the other side, Metke and Sarutobi Asuma were cleaning up Sanin Ninja and Otogekure Ninja in the venue. Sarutobi Asuma said, "Leave this to me, you go support other places." After Metke left, Asuma came to Shikamaru Nara's side, and his face didn't look so good. "Shikamaru, how long are you going to pretend? And Ino? You also?" Shikamaru Nara and Ino Yamanaka opened their eyes and smiled. Hey! Hey! Asuma looked at Dingji, who was sleeping soundly, and said, "Break Dingji's genjutsu, and then the 3 of you go and protect the daimyo who fell into genjutsu." 2 people who were slacking off were caught. The other person who was paddling wasn't really paddling either. At the same time, Sakura Haruno was hugging her head and crying in one of the corridors below the stage. She didn't know what happened outside. In the distance, 2 Otogekure ninja hiding from the outside looked at each other and approached Haruno Sakura with kunai. Haruno Sakura heard the footsteps and raised her head to take a look. Her pupils dilated in fear. Just as she was about to fight back, 2 icicles suddenly penetrated their bodies from behind. Immediately after, cold air spread out from the icicles and the bodies of the 2 were frozen in the blink of an eye. Then, they stiffened and fell to the ground. Dang! They fell to the ground like stone men. Sakura Haruno looked at the 2 people who turned into icicles with one hand in shock and exclaimed, "Naruto?" The 2 Naruto were expressionless and said coldly, "Follow me." If Naruto's clone is the funny mode when he wants to die, then these 2 people are Naruto's facial paralysis mode when he wants to kill people. It was so cold that even Naruto himself was a little scared. The 2 Naruto took Sakura Haruno to the entrance of the competition. One of them inserted his head into the ice and shouted inside, "Found it." Then, A crack appeared on the ice wall. The facial paralysis, Naruto said without a trace of emotion. Go in. Sakura Haruno was a little scared, but her body had been thrown in by the other facial paralysis. Then the ice wall quickly closed. Sakura Haruno walked into the arena. In front of her was a strange world of ice and snow. She couldn't help but clench her hands and be careful of her surroundings. Until she saw Naruto sitting on the ice in the center of the arena with his cheek in his hand, and Kazama Hanatsuki, sensei, who was shivering in a quilt. She exclaimed, Naruto. Naruto raised his other hand and waved. Don't just stand there. Come and take care of Sasuke. Although he said take care of him, there wasn't much to take care of. Sasuke was still unconscious, his body lying there obediently. He didn't have a quilt on him, so there was no need for a blanket. Upon hearing Sasuke, Sakura Haruno was shocked. She looked behind Naruto and saw a familiar leg. Sasuke? Then she quickly ran over. What's going on? Why is it like this? Sakura Haruno planned to touch Sasuke, but Kazama Hanatsuki said while shivering, Don't touch him. Don't hurt him. Don't touch him. Kazama Hanatsuki tightened her quilt. Seeing Kazama Hanatsuki shivering, Sakura Haruno suddenly felt a little cold. Soon, she felt that it wasn't just a little cold, but very cold. Because the heat from her body had dissipated, and because it was still summer outside, she was wearing short-sleeved clothes. She shivered uncontrollably, hugged her shoulders, and asked Naruto, What happened to Sasuke? Why is he covered in blood? Speaking of blood, Sakura Haruno realized that Naruto's clothes were also covered in frozen blood. Naruto had already told Hwayu that someone else beat him up. Hwayu was still here, so he couldn't reveal his secret. So he asked, Don't you know what happened outside? Sakura Haruno suddenly thought of the two ninjas who died in front of her. Then, he perked up his ears and carefully listened to the movements outside. She wasn't sure. A battle happened? Naruto's eyelids twitched. He asked curiously, What were you doing just now? Where did my doppelganger find you? Why do I feel that you are more like a transmigrator than me? Aren't you too out of touch? Naruto ordered his clones to find Sakura Haruno and bring her back. Because there were many clones, Naruto didn't establish a spiritual link with all of them. After all, he still had to save energy to watch the battle between Naruto Sandaime and Orochimaru. The person summoned by the Edo Tensei was very magical in Naruto's eyes. He even had the intention to learn it. Sakura Haruno didn't know how to answer. She couldn't say that she was hiding in a corner and crying, right? That would be too embarrassing. So she changed the topic. Don't worry about where I was just now. Tell me what happened to Sasuke. Achoo. Sakura Haruno sneezed because of the cold. Then, it became even colder. Naruto shook his head. Don't look at me. I don't have any quilts on me. There's only one. Sakura Haruno shook her head and said, I'm fine. What happened to Sasuke? Naruto rolled his eyes. He didn't want to lie, but he had to lie. He regretted asking Sakura Haruno to come over. Another troublesome feeling. I already said that there was a battle. Naturally, he was beaten up. Sakura Haruno asked, Where is he? Who beat him up? Naruto rolled his eyes. He's dead. How would I know who the enemy is? At this moment, Sasuke made a sound. Naruto glanced at him and found that this guy was awake. This guy won't expose me, right? Sasuke's lips were purple from the cold. Why is it so cold? Naruto frowned. Is it really that cold? However, Sasuke's lips seemed to be purple, as if he was frozen. So Naruto thought for a while and suggested, How about we set up a stove? Naruto took out a storage scroll, and soon a stove was set up. The stove was placed in the middle of the three people. Sakura Haruno and Hana were squeezed under the quilt. They shivered and said, Why didn't you take it out earlier? Naruto wanted to say that the battle outside was about to end. In fact, it was indeed about to end. Because in shared vision, Sandaime-sama began to use Shiki Fujin. On the other side, Jiraiya returned from outside. He was cleaning up the mess outside the village with the toad. Naruto's pigeon stood on the eaves and watched. Jiraiya looked over and asked, "Naruto?" Naruto's main body raised his eyebrows. He was depressed. How did Jiraiya find him? He was already careful enough. Could it be that Jiraiya was still using his perception ninjutsu? The pigeon replied, "Ah, it's me." Jiraiya was a little worried. "Where is your main body?" The pigeon replied, "I'm taking care of the wounded." Jiraiya nodded and warmly said, "Pay attention to your safety." Then he kicked Naruto's pigeon. Naruto's face darkened. Motherfucker. Naruto knew that Jiraiya wanted the pigeon to bring him a message, but it hurt. Although Naruto wasn't afraid of pain, it wasn't worth it to experience the feeling of having his clone explode because of a trash greeting. To think that he even felt a warm feeling in his heart. Outside the wood leaf, after Jiraiya kicked Naruto's clone, he shouted in a low voice, "Cool. But it would be even better if it wasn't a pigeon." Chapter 148. On the streets of Wood Leaf, several ninjas of Sound Ninja Village scattered around, and from time to time, they would throw a few detonation tags to blow up some buildings. Their purpose was to disperse the combat power of Wood Leaf, so that it would be convenient for the big boss to act. However, there is always a price to pay for destroying public property. If you encounter an ordinary ninja of Wood Leaf, you'll be injured or stunned. For example, Metke. But if you encounter an Umbu ninja, you'll usually be cut in the neck, stomach, or even worse, from the top to the bottom. The result can be imagined: either your neck is broken, or your waist is cut in half, and then when you struggle, you'll be cut in half from the middle. At this moment, human life is worthless than the rotten cabbage sold at the street stall. A pigeon glided through the sky and witnessed several tragedies. It sighed, but it didn't stop and directly landed in front of a ninja shop. This was a ninja shop that was blown up extremely miserably. The shop's front was blown away, and black smoke was rolling inside. The pigeon was stunned. It didn't expect that even this shop couldn't escape the fate of being blown up. But it shouldn't be. With the Sakuragi sisters, this shop should be the safest place in Wood Leaf except for the Umbu. Because to this day, Naruto hasn't taken a hit from any of the two girls who didn't use their full strength. Naruto was very clear about the terrifying combat power of the two girls who seemed weak. The pigeon flew into the ninja shop and saw the two girls putting out the fire. Their faces were covered in dust, and they were choked by the smoke with tears flowing down their faces. They looked very weak and helpless, making people feel pity for them. The pigeon pressed its left foot on its right foot, and with a bang, it turned into Naruto. "What are you doing?" In any case, it was impossible for these two people to choke like this, so Naruto was very sure that these two people were going to do something. Sure enough, after seeing Naruto appear, a hint of cunning appeared in their eyes. Then, he brought Naruto to the store manager's office. Natsuya Sakuragi said, "We're making money." That's how the store manager used to make money. I remember the last time we opened a store in Iwagakure, the enemy attacked and burned everything. The store manager burned all the expired explosive tags and low-selling goods. After the battle ended, the old man in Iwagakure lost a lot of money. Also, he gave me a huge rent-free shop in a good location for free. Naruto listened in a daze. Life was full of business opportunities. I didn't know that money could be earned this way. I've learned a lot today. Chun also came over and said with stars in her eyes, "I've just calculated. If the compensation for the wood leaf is paid, it will be enough to cover 2 years' worth of sales. By then, even if we close the store for a year, the store manager won't say anything when he comes back." Xia made up an excuse and said, "Also, who knows, we might change to a better and bigger free store. When the time comes, we can split the profits and open a pastry shop." "I'm witty, right?" Naruto raised his hand and touched Xia's head, praising, "You're witty. Don't forget my share when the time comes." Hearing that Naruto wanted a share, Xia pouted and asked, "You didn't contribute anything. Why should I share it with you?" Naruto smiled, my biggest contribution is that I didn't report you. Xia's eyes widened. How can you be shameless here? Naruto nodded with pride. Same here. Thank you for the compliment. Well, you continue to work hard for 2 years' worth of sales. I'm just here to take a look. Now it's time to go. With that, Naruto's clone body disappeared with a bang. At the edge of the wood leaf, after a huge toad with 2 blades finished off the giant python, Jiraiya asked Ibiki in the ruins, "Where's Sandame Naruto?" Ibiki wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and replied, "He's over there in the examination room." Jiraiya looked in the direction of the examination room and prayed in his heart, "Don't die, old man. Don't die." But this praying appearance isn't very effective. On the glazed tiles, inside the 4 purple flame formation barrier, Sandame Naruto was entangled on the earth wall by First Dame Naruto's Edo Tensei. Orochi watched the fun and sneered, "Hey, Sarutobi-sensei, you've been caught by them." Sandame Naruto cut his finger and pressed his 5 fingers on a wooden stake in front of him. Ninjutsu, summoning jutsu. Then an old monkey with a wood leaf forehead protector was summoned. Sandame Naruto's old partner, the Ape King, Demonic Ape. After the monkey was summoned, his eyes fell on Orochimaru and said to himself, "Orochimaru, things have really turned out like this." Then he turned his head and looked at Sandame Naruto, who was tied to the earth wall by a wooden stake, and sneered, "Sarutobi, it's really sad. Who told you not to kill him at that time?" Thinking of the past, Sandame Naruto's face became gloomy and replied angrily, "I'm about to do it now." Demonic Ape curled his lips. "Humph. It's too late." Sandame Naruto ordered, "Demonic Ape, turn into Rui Jingubang." Although Demonic Ape mocked Sandame Naruto, he still followed the order after receiving it. He turned into a red stick with 2 bright golden ends in the middle. Pigeon, who was watching the battle in the distance, tilted his head and said in his heart, "Fuck. Isn't this the great sage's Jingubang?" The only difference was that the great sage's Jingubang was the stabilizing force of the East Sea, and the one in front of him was an old monkey. Sandame held the Jingubang and smashed the twisted tree trunk and the earth wall behind him. With a backhand, he carried the Jingubang on his shoulder, and his momentum was extraordinary. When Orochimaru saw this, he opened his mouth and a snake came out of it. Orochimaru raised his hand and pulled out a sword from the snake's mouth, which was also a tachi. Kusanagi sword. It was a sword that was said to be magical. Naruto, who had learned the art of forging, knew very well that this sword was indeed very powerful. He couldn't help but have some ideas in his heart. If he could get this sword and melt it, he might be able to learn a lot. Kusanagi sword was very famous, but the method of forging it was not spread out. It was also a mystery in the forging world, but Naruto was probably the only one in the world who wanted to melt this sword and analyze its structure. It was really because this sword was too famous, too precious, and the Kusanagi clan that made this sword was extinct. Even if it was out of respect, no one would want to melt this sword. Naruto was also a little bit worried. If he just took it, the store manager should support him to melt it. But taking the Kusanagi sword was not very reliable, and it was in Orochimaru's hands. Naruto shook his head and decided to continue watching the battle. Naruto's pigeon clone was not far from the battle site. The 2 people in the 4 violet flame formation might have already noticed him, but no one could come out until the formation was lifted, so no one cared about him. The Umbu ninjas outside were only focused on watching the battle or trying to find a way to break the 4 violet flame formation, so they didn't have time to pay attention to him. So Naruto watched calmly. In the 4 violet flame formation, the Kusanagi sword and the monkey's Jingubang clashed, and then the monkey's cry was heard. Naruto felt a little sympathy for the old monkey. After all, it was a fake, so it would be strange if it didn't hurt. Then, there were 2 consecutive explosions. Naruto was too familiar with this sound, because it was the sound of 2 detonation talismans. But it was a pity that they weren't the kind that cost tens of thousands of ryo each. The smoke of the explosion dispersed, and the hands and feet of the first Naruto and the second Naruto were blown off, but then they grew back. It wasn't the regrowth of flesh and blood, but the fragments that were blown away were recalled and then pieced together. So the scene was a little strange. Orochimaru leisurely looked at the scene and sneered, "Your breathing has become very rapid. What are you going to do next?" The third Naruto took a deep breath, and his expression suddenly relaxed, as if he had made some kind of decision. "Let's not fight with ninjutsu anymore. The next battle will be more like a battle between ninjas." Bloody and terrifying, the third Naruto is going to use the zombie demon seal? The pigeon straightened his head and solemnly decided to witness this moment in history. In the past, when the fourth Naruto used the zombie demon seal, would the third Naruto feel the same as him? Whose son is it? Anyway, it's not my son. Ridiculous. Chapter 149. Sandaime Naruto didn't immediately use Shiki Fujin. He was gasping for breath and resting. He's really old. Aging is something that humans can't avoid, and because it's inevitable, most people have long been accustomed to it. But, looking at Sandaime Naruto like this, Orochimaru couldn't help but laugh. Sandaime Naruto put his palms together. He was gathering enough chakra to prepare for the next ninjutsu. But listening to Orochimaru's laughter, he was a little dissatisfied. No matter what, he's the little beast sensei, and he doesn't feel that he's funny now. Action? At this time, he's squatting slightly with his palms together, because he's accumulating strength in his legs. He's on guard, so that if the opponent makes any action, he can counterattack or avoid it as soon as possible. So there's nothing funny about his action. However, Orochimaru was still laughing, staring at his face and laughing. He couldn't stop laughing. Sandaime Naruto finally couldn't help but ask, "What's so funny?" Orochimaru panted slightly, calmed down a little and said, "You're old, I've never seen you in such pain. You used to be known as a ninjutsu professor, but because of your age, you're not my opponent. You're really pitiful." With that, Orochimaru raised his right hand and brushed his face. Just like a Sichuan opera, he changed his face into a young and tender face with white skin. Sandaime Naruto was surprised, and at the same time, the Umbu outside the four violet flame formation were also surprised. And a pigeon not far away. However, compared to the surprise of Sandaime Naruto and the other Umbu ninjas, the pigeon was surprised because it's a woman's face. The pigeon was very sure about this, because the lines of the woman's face were not as hard as a man's face, but very soft. The nose is small, and the bridge of the nose is not obvious. It's said that after marriage, a woman's nose bridge will begin to develop due to the influence of her husband's testosterone. Well, Orochimaru shouldn't have a man yet. Thinking of this, the pigeon felt that she was a bit off track. In any case, with such a small and delicate face and waist-length black hair, Naruto could not be associated with a man. In the four purple flame array, Sandaime Naruto carefully analyzed the face, and the more he looked at it, the more he felt that it wasn't the Orochimaru he knew, so he couldn't help but ask, "Who are you?" Orochimaru laughed again. This time, even his voice turned into a woman's voice. It wasn't very unpleasant to hear, but it was somewhat seductive. However, the pigeons outside were a little angry and uncomfortable. The woman said, "Because it's too sudden and you can't understand?" "I'm Orochimaru." When Pigeon heard this, she complained in her heart, "It's a class reunion, and you suddenly found out that your old buddy has turned into a girl. No matter who it is, they wouldn't be able to understand it." Or perhaps it was New Year's Eve, and their son, who had been away from home for many years, was dressed in women's clothing. No matter how beautiful they were, their parents would still be in a mess. He might not even celebrate the new year and just pick up a kitchen knife to clean up the house. However, Pigeon was looking forward to seeing what Orochimaru would look like if he changed into women's clothing. He should be enchanting enough. He would become a tormenting little fairy, the type that would make people cry. I wonder if Sasuke, Kuin would be able to take it? Or would Sasuke be infected by this? The image was too vivid. Naruto decided to shut down his computer and restart it to clear his brain's memory. In the Chunin exam venue, Sasuke couldn't move his body. He glanced sideways at Naruto and said, "Why do you keep looking at me?" Naruto chuckled and said, "Nothing, it's just your imagination. I'm not secretly looking at you, he he he." Naruto turned his head away as he spoke, but he couldn't help but glance at Sasuke again. Sakura Haruno couldn't help but say, Naruto, you're indeed looking at Sasuke. Beside her, Hana Kazuki nodded in agreement. Naruto's smile froze. He was a little worried that he might be misunderstood. So, he straightened his expression and turned his attention to the pigeon. At this time, Sandaime Naruto finally changed from his disciple to a girl. No. He finally recovered from the shock that the person in front of him was really Orochimaru. Sandaime Naruto's expression was extremely serious as he asked, "Could it be, you've successfully learned the taboo jutsu?" The pigeon's eyes widened, and her expression lit up. Because the pigeon found that if this sentence was understood in a different way, it didn't feel strange at all. Orochi smiled and replied, He, I've been away from the village for so many years. I've had a hard time." The pigeon's mouth was wide open, and she had a funny expression on her face. She complained in her heart, "This sentence doesn't feel strange at all if it's understood in a different way. After all, it's impossible for a boy to suddenly become a girl, whether it's physically, mentally, or in the eyes of the outside world." Sandaime Naruto said with a cold expression, "You're really a terrifying monster." Hearing this, the pigeon's eyes curved into crescents. If it was an ordinary pigeon, it would naturally be impossible for it to have such a rich expression, but because it was transformed by chakra, as long as he wanted, there were infinite possibilities. But there was no doubt that the style of the pigeon in front of him was completely different from ordinary pigeons. At this time, even a retard would be able to recognize that this pigeon couldn't be a real pigeon. Fortunately, everyone's eyes were focused on Orochimaru's face, so no one paid attention to this side, allowing the pigeon to avoid the end of being eradicated. Sandaime Naruto said seriously, "I didn't choose you to be Sandaime Naruto precisely because of your twisted soul." The pigeon collapsed even more. Fortunately, the following conversation was much more normal. Orochimaru proudly said, "This immortality jutsu is a jutsu that allows one's soul to exist forever, that is, after finding a new body, one's soul can occupy that body. I'm pretending to be my old self, just to let Sensei reminisce about the past when we meet again." Sandaime Naruto's face was very ugly, and he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and cursed, "Bastard." Orochimaru didn't care and continued, "Aging is an empty thing, seeing you makes me feel this more deeply. You will die here, and I will get a younger and stronger body." Orochimaru stuck out his long tongue and licked his lips. "Woodleaf, this place really brings me a lot of fun." Sandaime Naruto's eyelids twitched when he heard the word younger and stronger. "I understand. It's Uzumaki Naruto. Huh?" The pigeon's originally funny expression suddenly became petrified. 10,000 curses were running in his heart. Shouldn't it be Uchiha Sasuke? What does it have to do with me? Fortunately, Orochimaru helped Naruto and said, No, the one I want is Uchiha Sasuke." Sigh. The pigeon's heart was very tired, and the pigeon's liver was very painful. After all, Orochimaru still hasn't planted a curse seal on Sasuke, so it's reasonable for Sandaime Naruto to suspect the wrong person. However, it's definitely not because I have some kind of commonality with Orochimaru. Well, Orochimaru said that he was young and strong, and I am indeed young and strong. Naruto comforted himself in his heart. Inside the four violet flame formation, Sandaime Naruto stared at Orochimaru's face and said, "Using the reincarnation technique to seize the body of others to make yourself immortal. How many people does that face belong to?" Orochimaru replied without hesitation, "It's the second one. I intend to cultivate Sasuke into the appearance I like, and then seize him." Sandaime Naruto's body trembled with anger and cursed, "Bastard." Orochimaru's hand brushed his face again, and he changed back to Orochimaru's appearance and said, "If I want you to regret it for the rest of your life and die cursing fate, it's better to use this face." At the same time, Edo Tensei Shodai Naruto suddenly made a hand seal and instantly used the tree world descend, and then the twisted trunk broke out of the ground again and wrapped around Sandaime Naruto. The tree grew extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it was as if the enchantment was full of branches. Orochimaru laughed and said, "Sensei, don't be careless, why are you always so naive?" At the critical moment, the golden cudgel that the ape demon transformed into suddenly changed into several cubes and superimposed on each other to form a cube cage to protect Sandaime Naruto. After saving Sandame Naruto, the ape demon complained, "What's wrong with you? This isn't like you." Sandame Naruto's face was a little lonely. "I'm sorry." He was still a little reluctant in his heart. After all, that was his apprentice. The apprentice he once cherished. Last time, he had another chance to kill Orochimaru. But he couldn't do it. His hands were also stained with blood, or more accurately, his entire body was soaked in a pool of blood. Perhaps the older one got, the more useless they became. Sandame Naruto was a little sad and slowly closed his eyes. It was time to make up his mind. When he opened his eyes again, Sandame Naruto's gaze became resolute. "I'll kill you now to correct my previous mistakes," Orochimaru said unconcernedly. "It's too late." Sandame Naruto used the Shadow Clone Jutsu and split into 3. Then he began to make hand seals. Si, Hai, Wei, Mao, Su, Zi, Yu, Wu, Si. Corpse Demon Seal. Sandame Naruto suddenly felt a chill behind him. Thus, he turned around to take a look. The purple-skinned Grim Reaper with 2 horns on its head and a ferocious expression was standing behind Sandame Naruto with its hands open. The cold air was emitted from this thing's body. Although he was the one who summoned it, Sandame Naruto's heart couldn't help but tremble. He muttered to himself, "This is the Grim Reaper that Sandame Naruto said can only be seen by signing a contract with this jutsu." Outside the 4 purple flame formation, the pigeon who was watching the show froze and stared at Sandame Naruto's back, because he actually saw the so-called Grim Reaper. Wasn't it said that only the caster or the target could see the Grim Reaper? How could he see it? Naruto felt a little uneasy. At this time, Nine-Tails' voice sounded, "It's actually this jutsu, how nostalgic." Although Kyuubi said that she missed the past, she gritted her teeth and said those words. Naruto suddenly realized that the reason he could see it was because Nine-Tails had been affected by this jutsu. And now, Nine-Tails and himself could be considered as one. After understanding this, Naruto couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But who would have thought that the Grim Reaper with a dagger in its mouth would turn around and look at him? Naruto's heart suddenly felt cold. It felt like it was over. Chapter 150. The Grim Reaper wouldn't suddenly pounce on them, would he? Naruto was a little scared, and Nine-Tails was also a little scared. Then they saw Sandame Naruto use the corpse demon sealing technique to seal first Naruto and second Naruto respectively. Finally, he grabbed Orochimaru's hand, and when he couldn't hold on and couldn't pull out Orochimaru's soul, he cut off Orochimaru's hand. After the Grim Reaper disappeared, Naruto and Nine-Tails breathed a sigh of relief. The battle between Sandame and Orochimaru was very fierce, but because the Grim Reaper glanced at Naruto, Naruto felt as if time had frozen in an instant. It wasn't until the Grim Reaper disappeared that Naruto returned to normal. "That thing looked at us before, didn't it?" Naruto was still a little shaken. The moment the Grim Reaper looked over, although it was only looking at the pigeon clone, it gave Naruto the feeling that it had locked on to his main body. It was a very strange feeling, as if even time had frozen in an instant. His body couldn't move, and his whole body was cold. It was like he had encountered a ghost. Naruto has never encountered a ghost, but he found that this was the most appropriate description. Nine-Tails' expression was also very dignified, and hypothesized, "Maybe it's because the other half of my body is in its stomach? By the way, Naruto, when will you release the other half of my body from that thing's stomach?" Using the Grim Reaper's mask to save the other half of Nine-Tails' clone was a deal between Naruto and Nine-Tails. It was also the bond between the two of them to maintain their friendship. This agreement was made when the two of them went to the Wave Country. Naruto replied, "When I have a way to unlock the seal on my body, if I don't release it now, it can't merge with you, right?" Nine-Tails pondered for a moment, and it seemed to make sense. Then he asked again, "Then when can you unlock this seal?" Naruto pretended not to know. "You ask me, but who should I ask?" Nine-Tails nodded, thinking that there was nothing wrong with it. Nine-Tails stopped asking questions, and Naruto finally breathed a sigh of relief. Why didn't he take Jiraiya as his teacher? Was it just because he didn't like toads? No. It's because he didn't want to touch the key left by Yondaime Naruto. He could still get along with Nine Tails now, but what about after he obtained the key? Do you think he should open it or not? Nine Tails. The most ferocious tailed beasts. Open my ass. It wasn't a joke. Naruto did not dare to gamble. To him, the most precious thing in the world was his own life. Therefore, Naruto's plan was to come into contact with the key once he obtained the power to restrain Nine Tails. Restrain Nine Tails' power. First, transplanted Manjikyu Sharingan. This is just a hypothesis. Second, there is a trustworthy person around who can use Manjikyu Sharingan. If Sasuke can be trusted, it will be feasible in the future. Third, transplanting Shodai cells to obtain Mokuton. This is a bad plan. After all, many people died after transplanting Shodai cells. Plus, Shodai cells are not cabbages on the street. The feasibility is as low as the first one. Fourth, fuse with the soul of the person who has Mokuton to obtain Mokuton, and wait for Sandame Naruto to seal Shodai's soul in Shinigami's stomach or kill Yamato. This plan is a secret in his heart. Now that one of the conditions is finally within reach, then, let's go, the battle outside is over. Let's take Sasuke to the hospital. Walking out of the ice and snow arena, Hana Kazama threw the quilt aside and was about to embrace the sun, but she was shocked by the scene outside. There were corpses all over the ground, including Woodleaf's ninja, Otogekyure's ninja, and Sanen's ninja. Crisscrossed, and broken limbs fell everywhere. There was also a smell of burnt barbecue in the air. It was the smell left after being attacked by fire release or lightning release ninjutsu. Hana Kazama's body trembled. But Naruto held her. Hana-sensei. Hana Kazama took a breath carefully. She didn't dare to breathe. The smell of burnt barbecue around her made her sick. I'm fine. Send Sasuke to the hospital first. Hana Kazama's face was pale. She was never afraid of corpses in the past, but the scene around her was not as simple as corpses. It was simply hell. For the rest of the day, the entire Woodleaf was silent, and everyone was immersed in their own things. Those who should count the corpses counted the corpses. Those who should look for survivors looked for survivors. Those who should be treated, those who should be treated. Because there were too many injured people, Naruto was transferred to the medical ninja team and was busy for 3 days and 3 nights. But these are the things that a small person like him should do. The big people are responsible for diplomacy and appease the frightened dignitaries. There was also the funeral of Sandame Naruto. It was worth mentioning that because of various accidents, the sickly Moonlight Rush survived. Then, they had to choose the next Naruto as soon as possible. Danzo recommended himself, but he was rejected. Koharu and Hamura found Jiraiya. The reason was that the Woodleaf needed a famous person to deter people who wanted to spy on the Woodleaf. They also needed to prove that the Woodleaf had the strength to continue to accept commissions. Jiraiya was one of the Woodleaf Sannin, so he naturally met this requirement. Danzo, on the other hand, is someone who stands in the darkness of Konoha. Although he is powerful, there are very few people who know about him. But to everyone's surprise, Jiraiya was not interested in the position that Danzo had been coveting for a long time. Instead, he recommended Tsunade, who had been missing for many years. In this regard, Hamura and Koharu couldn't do anything about it. In the end, they finalized the agreement. If Jiraiya could bring Tsunade back, then Hamura and Koharu would support Tsunade to become the 5th Naruto. If he couldn't bring her back, then Jiraiya couldn't escape this responsibility. Jiraiya agreed, so, outside the Woodleaf Gate, Naruto followed Jiraiya out of the village. Jiraiya looked at Naruto unhappily. Why do you have to take Tsunade as your sensei? I'm also one of the Sannin. Didn't you see that they all recommended me to be the next Naruto? Naruto chewed on his popsicle. Other people ate popsicles in the summer to get rid of the heat, but Naruto was bored to death. Or bite off a section and shoot it at the leaves like spitting beans. There were unlimited bullets, because the section that was bitten off would quickly grow back. Because you don't have anything to teach me. Chakra bit off a piece of popsicle and gathered it in her mouth. The ice in her mouth spun rapidly and then shot it out. Poof! A hole was shot through the tree trunk, which was as thick as two people hugging it. Then he said to Jiraiya, "How about this? Does it taste like Bijudama?" Jiraiya's mouth twitched. "Bijudama, your uncle. Have you ever seen Bijudama?" Then he suddenly frowned and asked, "You know about Bijudama?" Naruto bit off another piece of ice, and this time he chewed it. Poof! 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 He shot it out. This time it didn't have any power, it was just spitting beans for fun. Then he replied, "Isn't Rasengan a ninjutsu developed by Yondaime Naruto based on Bijudama? I even learned Rasengan, how can I not know about Bijudama?" Jiraiya raised his eyebrows and felt that it made sense. Then Naruto opened his mouth. This time he didn't eat ice, but gathered chakra in front of his mouth, compressed it, and rotated it. Jiraiya was stunned, because it was Rasengan. Fuck. Rasengan is released with the mouth. But the Rasengan disappeared before it could be shot out. Naruto took a bite of ice and said vaguely, "I haven't found a good way to shoot Rasengan yet." Then an ice ball spun and shot out. After a while, Naruto walked into the grass and took out a rabbit that was shot through and said, "We have roasted rabbit tonight." Jiraiya. He suddenly realized that he really didn't have anything to teach Naruto. How can this guy control chakra so well? Thinking of this, Jiraiya tried to gather Rasengan with his mouth. But he didn't control it well and chakra cut his lips. Jiraiya was shocked and called Naruto, "Come and heal me. My face is going to be disfigured." Naruto blinked and said in surprise, "Your lips are very sexy." Jiraiya urged, "Not sexy at all, quickly heal me, or my face will be disfigured." Naruto made a condition, "Then you can't mention accepting me as a disciple in the future." Jiraiya readily agreed. Then he used the palm immortal jutsu to heal Jiraiya's mouth. Chapter 151. In the early morning mist, the wood leaf that had experienced a bloody rain was still filled with the smell of blood. A drop of dew condensed at the tip of the leaf refracted some golden-orange light under the light of the relay station. Two silhouettes flashed by like two fleeting ghosts. "Itachi, I didn't expect it to be so easy to come in." The man with the Mohican hairstyle, his skin was a little blue, and his cheeks were painted with shark gills on both sides. He sighed in a low voice. As for what a Mohican hairstyle was, it could be imagined as a handsome shallot. The man called Itachi silently looked down at the village in front of him. At this time, the two stood on the wall built by thick wooden stakes at the edge of the wood leaf. The breeze blew, and the black trench coats printed with fiery red clouds swayed together. The two seemed to be wearing a couple's outfit, because it was exactly the same. There was also a couple's bamboo hat, with the same style of tassels on the bamboo hat. The collar of the trench coat was very big, and when the wind blew, it would gently slap the cheeks, making a faint pa sound, because the wood leaf jutsu did not change. This answer was a bit plain and casual, and it was not proud of being able to quietly enter the wood leaf, one of the 5 great ninja villages. Instead, it was a bit sad. In the sight of the two, the wood leaf in the early morning was still shrouded in the morning mist, and only a few scattered yellow incandescent lamps were lit. Most of them were food stores that needed to get up early to prepare materials. In addition, in the gray mist, some traces of the previous days could be vaguely seen. Broken walls, and some half-collapsed houses. The man with the Mohican hairstyle glanced at the village below and sighed. Although it escaped destruction, it still seems to have suffered a lot of damage. Itachi also sighed. The originally prosperous village is actually... He paused for a moment, perhaps because he couldn't think of a good word, so he didn't continue. He just summarized, "It's really pitiful." This sigh made the man next to him widen his eyes for a moment, and then he said sarcastically, "It's really not like you. Even you have some nostalgia for your hometown." Itachi's voice suddenly became cold. "No. I don't miss it at all." When Kisame, Uchiha Itachi, and the 2 generals of Akatsuki arrived at Woodleaf, Naruto and Jiraiya had already spent the night in a small town near Woodleaf. Regarding this, Naruto was very resentful. He strongly expressed that they could go camping and travel through the night. However, Jiraiya firmly refused. It was 4:30 in the morning in a small town inn, and the temperature in the room dropped sharply. Jiraiya tightened the quilt on his body, but this quilt is just a summer cold quilt, it doesn't provide much warmth at all. In the end, he successfully woke up from the cold. When he opened his eyes, it was a world of ice and snow. Can you imagine the scene of snowflakes falling in your room early in the morning? Most importantly, there were no leaks in the houses, and it was still summer. Naruto! What are you doing? Jiraiya roared, but he saw Naruto already dressed neatly, standing beside him and looking straight at him. Jiraiya's mouth twitched. He held back what he wanted to say. Sighing, he finally got up and muttered, "I'm just looking for someone, not rushing to reincarnate." While Jiraiya was brushing his teeth, Naruto leaned against the door of the bathroom and said, "While you were sleeping, I have already found the whereabouts of Tsunade. She's near Bunker Street in the Land of Fire. Let's go directly." Jiraiya was so excited that he bit the toothbrush in half, spat out half of the toothbrush in his mouth, and shouted, "How is it possible? You haven't seen Tsunade. How did you?" Before he finished speaking, he saw Naruto holding a photo of Tsunade and said, "Isn't it this person?" Jiraiya felt that the photo was very familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere. It's not the person in the photo that is familiar, but the photo is familiar. Then he shouted, "Isn't this in my wallet?" "How did you find it?" Naruto said casually, "You and Tsunade are both disciples taught by Sandaime Naruto, so I speculated that you must have clues about her. But, even if I guessed it, I didn't expect you to put Tsunade's photo in your wallet. It's not a group photo, but a single one. You and Tsunade. Are you?" Naruto smiled. Jiraiya's face suddenly turned red. He changed the topic wittily, "How do you know the person in the photo is Tsunade?" Naruto laughed, "I saw a group photo of you in Sandaime Naruto's place." Then Naruto turned the topic back, "Have you always been secretly in love with Tsunade?" This sentence was so direct, it was like a shoe rake was thrown to the face, leaving no room to dodge. Jiraiya still had a lot of questions in his heart, but most of them were suppressed by this rough blow. Finally, he blushed and covered it up. "She's a 50-year-old woman, who would like her?" Naruto said sarcastically, "Not a 50-year-old woman, I heard that Tsunade-sama can stay young forever." Jiraiya looked at Naruto in surprise. "You know this too?" Naruto said calmly, "Naruto Sandaime told me." Was it really Naruto Sandaime who told him? Nonsense. But after Sandaime received the box, this question was obviously unproven. Unless one day Naruto Sandaime was reincarnated by Edo Tensei. But at that time, Jiraiya also forgot this question. Naruto asked for the third time, "You like Tsunade, right? How can a man not dare to admit this? You don't deserve to be my sensei because of this." "When I liked a girl, I directly kissed her to confess," Naruto said quite arrogantly. But in fact, his brain was still in a daze that day. He thought he had a dream about Naruto. He could do whatever he wanted in the dream. But this didn't affect his bragging. Jiraiya was stunned when he heard this, and the soul of gossip was tempted and asked, "What was the result? You were slapped by someone?" Naruto looked at Jiraiya contemptuously. "Only you can experience that kind of bad scene. My result was naturally successful, and then the girl became my girlfriend." This story was too bizarre. Jiraiya asked, "Which family's girl is she?" Naruto replied proudly, "Hyuga family, Hinata, who teamed up with me." Naruto was very arrogant. Naruto was very proud. Jiraiya couldn't believe it. The girl from the Hyuga main family? Her father didn't slap you? Naruto continued proudly, "No, I think my father-in-law should also think that I'm handsome and talented. I'm a good man who can be entrusted with his life." Jiraiya couldn't listen to this anymore, and he suddenly felt a squirming in his stomach. He felt like vomiting when he saw the sea. "I've never seen such a shameless person." At this time, Naruto asked, "Do you like Tsunade or not? Don't be like an old woman, if you like. Then when I become Tsunade's apprentice, I can help you." Jiraiya despised, How do you know that Tsunade will accept you as her apprentice? Naruto said confidently, because my medical ninjutsu talent is what Leaf's strongest. Jiraiya was stunned for a while, and finally couldn't help but say, has anyone ever said that your face is asking for a beating? Naruto thought about it carefully. There were people, such as Tion, the sharp-tongued woman, and Ino, and Naruto said confidently, even if there is, it's jealousy. Alas, jealousy makes people ugly. Chapter 152. The morning sun hasn't shined yet, and from time to time, a painful whimper came from a small wooden house. The voice was a bit sharp, like a woman's voice, but also a little hoarse and low. Orochimaru-sama, you should take the medicine. The servant urged anxiously, but in the next moment, a black shadow flashed, blood splashed, and the man fell directly to the ground. The blood was like a blooming rose in the dark, silently blooming under the man's body. The man sitting on the bed didn't look at the man's body, he was still enduring great pain, blue veins were exposed, and a pair of snake-like vertical pupils were staring at him. His pupils dilated and contracted. It was breathtaking. At this time, the door was pushed open. The person who came in was Kabuto, wearing round glasses and a small ponytail. Please take the medicine. Kabuto glanced at the body, frowned, and sighed. Sigh. I just came back, and I have to clean the room again. Again? Yes. Since Orochimaru came back, I don't know how many people have died. The life of the weak is like a fart to the strong, although they have a noble background, they are worthless. Orochimaru endured the pain and snorted, Humph. I don't want to take that medicine that won't work for long. Kabuto helplessly pushed his glasses. That's what I made. It should reduce your pain. Orochimaru interrupted. Don't talk nonsense. Did you find that guy? Seeing Orochimaru was a little angry, Kabuto didn't talk nonsense and directly replied, I found him, I heard he's in the Bunka Street. Bunka Street? Naruto also wants to go there. Both of them seem to want to find Tsunade, but the difference is that one wants to treat himself, and the other wants to treat the person he accidentally hurt. The sky was a little bright. Naruto dragged Jiraiya out of the hotel. Hurry up, even if you don't want to see Tsunade early, Sasuke's hand will be useless for a long time. Jiraiya was reluctant because he only had a soldier food pill for breakfast. Is this something a human can eat? Well, although it is a human can eat it, it's not like I'm on a mission. Is there a need to rush? In a bad mood, Jiraiya couldn't help but mock. What's the use of being anxious now? Weren't you the one who did it? Sasuke also took a look at the wound. The bones in his hand were twisted, and he recognized that it was caused by Rasengan. Afterwards, Heine Kazama found out. After all, Heine Kazama was Sasuke's main doctor and was very beautiful. As a result, Naruto was once again ridiculed by Hanafong Jien. Naruto ignored Jiraiya's sarcasm and said after going out of the door, let's compete in speed. Jiraiya was taken aback. What did you say? Naruto pointed at the map and said, Short Book Street is in the Fire Country's main city, this town is still 300 kilometers away, let's run there as fast as we can. Jiraiya's face turned black. He pointed at the two towns in the middle and said, there are two more towns in the middle. Are we going to run there without resting? However, Naruto had already run out. Looking at Naruto's back, Jiraiya decided to teach Naruto a good lesson. He wanted to easily overtake Naruto and then ridicule him. Then Jiraiya chased after him. He easily caught up and then overtook him, and said sarcastically, You dare to talk big in front of me with this little strength? Naruto was taken aback, and then he understood and asked, Are you talking about my speed? Jiraiya sped up a little, and in the blink of an eye, Naruto was 100 meters away. Naruto took a deep breath. He really couldn't run fast now. He could only remove 10% of the weight. After removing 10% of the weight, Naruto caught up with Jiraiya. Jiraiya was taken aback and praised, Your physique is good. Then he continued to speed up. What Jiraiya wanted to do was to tire Naruto, and then let Naruto take the initiative to ask to rest in the next town. In this way, he could go to the town to collect materials. Thinking of this, Jiraiya's heart seemed to be scratched by a kitten's claws, itching. Naruto was once again left behind by Jiraiya. Looking at Jiraiya's disappearing back, he laughed and said, "This guy really wants to race. I wanted to take the opportunity to exercise my body. In that case, I'll just relax." Naruto's weight had increased to 60% of the total weight. That is, 60% of 1,200 kilograms, 720 kilograms. This has reached the requirements of the second gate of Hashimoto Tonku. The second gate of Hashimoto Tonku required the body to carry a weight of 750 kilograms. However, Naruto hasn't tried to open the second gate yet. The weight was removed by 20%. Naruto caught up with Jiraiya. Jiraiya also sped up. Naruto adjusted the amount of chakra's transport, and took back some of the chakra that spread out of the body. After adapting, the weight was removed by 30%. He surpassed Jiraiya again. Jiraiya was surprised, and then sped up again, and praised, "Not bad, I didn't expect you to do so well in body refining." Naruto didn't answer. He was adjusting his body. Adjusting the balance of chakra and the weight that spread out of the body. After adapting, the weight was removed by 40%. His speed increased again. Jiraiya's eyes lit up, and he praised, "Very good. Very good. Then I'll let you see something even better." The less weight there was, the less chakra to maintain the balance, so it was easier to control. Naruto's speed of removing the weight also increased. The weight was removed by 60%. The weight was removed by 80%. The weight was removed by 100%. Naruto was like a runaway wild horse, and he began to run happily. Jiraiya stared at Naruto, who disappeared in front of him in the blink of an eye, and he cursed, "Fuck. Did this guy open the Hashimoto Tonku?" Then, he mobilized chakra and suddenly sped up to catch up. His speed was even faster than Naruto after removing all the weight. He caught up with Naruto again. Jiraiya didn't speak. He followed Naruto side by side and observed Naruto's body. Naruto smiled slightly and began to infuse chakra into his body. His speed increased again. Jiraiya's expression became dignified, and he caught up again. The town was in front of them, and the two of them unknowingly reached it. However, Naruto didn't intend to stop at all. Jiraiya was a little reluctant, and he felt that he lost a place to collect materials. Why didn't Jiraiya want to hurry? Because once he found Tsunade, he would no longer be able to collect materials freely. That girl would definitely stop him, and she would use the crudest method, her fists. "It's okay. There's still a town behind." Jiraiya comforted himself, thinking that Naruto was running so fast that he must have consumed a lot of physical strength. Maybe he would need to carry him halfway. Thinking like this, Jiraiya relaxed a little. Then he began to compress chakra and followed Naruto at a moderate speed. Naruto looked at Jiraiya beside him and licked his lips. Jiraiya was a bit strong, so he decided to use the secret technique he learned from Shikaku. But in order to not suddenly hit a tree, he had to open the first gate of the Hashimoto Tonku first. First gate. Open, open. His vision became more sensitive. At the same time, Naruto's physical strength limit was lifted, and his speed increased again. Jiraiya caught up again. Naruto's chakra's wind attribute changed. A wind blade slashed Naruto's cheek, leaving a bloody mark. Naruto didn't care. This was an unavoidable injury from Shikaku's secret technique. He just needed to focus on protecting some important places from being scratched by the wind blade. For example, his eyes and little Naruto. Chakra's wind attribute continued to gather, filling his whole body. Compress. Several wounds appeared in different parts of his body, and Naruto continued to compress. Then, burst. Shikaku's secret technique, Storm Wound. In an instant, Naruto disappeared from his place, and his speed increased by dozens of times. Wherever he passed, the branches and leaves of the trees were crushed by the wind blade. Jiraiya was surprised. Body flicker technique? When he looked down, there were drops of blood on the ground. After using Shikaku's secret technique, Naruto felt that he could really fly. This feeling was very carefree, and he didn't care about the wounds on his body. But if this scene fell into the eyes of others, it would seem a bit strange. For example, Jiraiya. Jiraiya also used body flicker technique to increase his speed. He decided to catch up with Naruto and capture him, and then tell Naruto that body flicker technique was not used like this. And this version of body flicker technique was also wrong. Using body flicker technique would cause blood to spurt out. This was completely evil. But what made Jiraiya tired was that Naruto ran so fast that he gave up the official road and took a shortcut into the forest. He wanted to go straight to the main city of the Fire Country. When Jiraiya finally caught up with Naruto, Naruto turned around and grinned at him. Hashimoto Tonka's second gate, Gate of Healing, open. His speed increased again. It was reasonable to say that ordinary ninjutsu couldn't be used when the gate of Hashimoto Tonka was open, because chakra was extremely unstable. But Naruto's body flicker technique didn't need chakra's stable control. He only needed to compress the wind attribute chakra and then burst it. The creation of speed was in the word, burst. Naruto's speed increased again. Jiraiya was anxious, and the next moment, he accidentally hit a tree. Bang! Jiraiya saw countless Naruto flying above his head. Chapter 153. Jiraiya's speed can't be compared to a little guy who hasn't been promoted to Chunin yet? This kind of unreasonable thing is unbelievable no matter how you look at it. Who is Jiraiya? He's one of the Wood Leaf Sannin. What level is Wood Leaf Sannin? Orochimaru is also one of the Sannin. He killed Yondaime Kozakage and Sandaime Naruto one after another. Woodleaf Sannin is comparable to Kage-level existences. But the fact is that Naruto really arrived outside the Fire Country before Jiraiya. Maybe this is something that can't be helped. Who told Jiraiya to meet a little madman? In the woods outside the main city of the Fire Country, Naruto's clothes have long been torn by wind blades, tattered and worse than a beggar. And the blood stains on his body. It's as if he was cut into pieces. Multiple Shadow Clone Jutsu. 4 clones appeared beside Naruto. Naruto fell straight to the ground, but he didn't fall to the ground, but fell on an ice bed that suddenly appeared. The 4 clones skillfully used the palm technique and began to treat Naruto. The deep and shallow wounds began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. After 5 minutes, with a roar, Jiraiya sat on the back of a huge toad and fell from the sky. It's really a huge toad. 10 times bigger than Naruto's building. It's a real behemoth. Naruto felt that if he stood on the toad's back, he would only be a small bump on the toad's back. Jiraiya saw Naruto. After all, he chased after the smell of blood all the way, and Naruto ran extremely straight. Wherever he passed, the branches were cut off, leaving extremely obvious traces. But before Jiraiya could teach Naruto a lesson, the toad under him suddenly shook and threw Jiraiya off, and roared in a rough voice, "This is the last time. The next time you use me as a vehicle, I'll break up with you." Then with a bang, it turned into a cloud and disappeared. This made Jiraiya, who originally wanted to act like a bee, fall to the bottom of the valley. He was taught a lesson by his own spiritual beast. If news of this were to spread out, it would be very embarrassing. Naruto lay on the ice bed and said proudly, "What do you think? Isn't my blink technique cool?" Cool. Cool knees mother's legs. Jiraiya turned around and stared at Naruto. "Which beast did you learn that body flicker jutsu from?" This question is a little difficult to answer. After all, if you want to talk about Shikaku, you have to talk about 9 tails. Therefore, he couldn't tell the truth or change the topic. Naruto decided to change the topic first. What's wrong? Isn't it cool to have a body flicker jutsu that you can't catch up with? Jiraiya looked at Naruto's body. The bloodstains on his body made him feel pain. The anger in his heart grew stronger. It was just like when a naughty baby accidentally cut his or her hand. As a parent, the first thing they did was definitely not to comfort the child, but to blame or even scold him or her. For example, I told you not to play with knives, but he refused to listen. Was this good? Crying. What are you crying for? It's all your own fault. Or, you deserve it. But the real emotion was definitely not gloating, but incomparable worry and heartache. Don't use this body flicker jutsu in the future. Jiraiya's face was stern with a commanding tone. Naruto subconsciously wanted to refute. If he didn't use this, then what? After all, he only knew this one. But after all, Naruto wasn't a real child. His mind was already mature. He could feel Jiraiya's worry for him. But he didn't promise. If he didn't use this, then what? He had checked Wood Leaf's wind release body flicker jutsu, but he couldn't find anything because this jutsu was too high for a genin. Maybe he felt Naruto's entanglement, or maybe he already had a plan. Jiraiya continued. I'll teach you another one. Naruto was a little touched, but he couldn't back down on the matter of not being able to worship Jiraiya as his teacher. He said, I can't worship you as my teacher. Jiraiya's tone was stubborn and direct. You don't have to worship me as your teacher. So, do you want to learn? If you don't worship me as your teacher, you can learn ninjutsu. With Naruto's character, there was no reason not to accept this kind of good deal. But if he learned it, what would he do if Jiraiya taught him? So annoying. Sure enough, people can't be too good. I wonder how Jiraiya would feel if he knew what Naruto was thinking at this time. What would those people who admired Jiraiya feel? There were also Koharu Utatane and Mitsuhimon who wanted Jiraiya to be Naruto. And what would Danzo, who didn't fight for Naruto's position, think? Maybe Naruto would be killed by someone's gaze. Well, Danzo's transplanted Sharingan can indeed kill him. After the injury was cured, Naruto and Jiraiya changed clothes and entered the main city of the Land of Fire. This was the most prosperous place in the Land of Fire, where the daimyo of the Land of Fire lived. It was indeed different from Wood Leaf. The road in Wood Leaf was a dirt road, but the road here was paved with marble. Although it wasn't completely covered, there was marble. The surrounding buildings were also very standard, not as messy as Wood Leaf. What square, round, tall, short, it was all messy. It was very neat here. And Naruto liked neat things. It was comfortable to look at. Naruto followed the map and walked to the short book street. Jiraiya followed and asked strangely, Who did you inquire about the news from? Is it accurate? You didn't rush in vain, right? After all, the town we lived in before was a relatively remote town. Inquire? Naruto never inquired about it. Thus, he started running his mouth and said, A destitute merchant who just came back from the Fire Nation. It said that he won a legendary fat sheep and made a handsome comeback. He earned a lot of money and will probably reach the peak of his life in the future. Jiraiya's face darkened, and he thought, Tsunade lost again. If it's the legendary fat sheep, then it's right. There is only one legendary fat sheep in this world. At the same time, at the other entrance of the short book street, Orochimaru and Kabuto walked up from the foot of the mountain. The mountain road was very smooth, and there were solid steps and planks. Kabuto stepped up a step and chatted casually, I know a little about Tsunade-sama. After all, I also stayed in the medical class. A butterfly flew by Kabuto's side, bringing a hint of flower fragrance. Kabuto glanced at butterflies and said as he walked up the stairs, She seems to be the first expert who came up with the idea that a medical ninja must be in a team of 4 people, which has now been widely adopted. Orochimaru was silent. Kabuto strengthened his tone, and there was even a kind of worship in his words. This proposal is very necessary. What will happen to a team without the ability to save themselves on the battlefield? Everyone knows now. Perhaps he felt the reverence in Kabuto's words. Orochimaru snorted and snorted at Kabuto's reverence. It's just the experience of a lot of battles. If it weren't for a large number of people dying, she wouldn't want to promote this proposal. The butterfly suddenly stopped flying because it hit a spider web. Kabuto glanced at the web and waited for Orochimaru's next words. Orochimaru looked at the front of the mountain road, paused for a while, and sneered, "People can only see the essence of things when they lose it. I can become the so-called medical ninja expert, and the so-called one of the Sannin. It's because of her sacrifice." At the end of the mountain road, an ancient city could be seen. It was the ancient city of Short Book Street. Jiraiya and Naruto were eating popsicles under the city. Jiraiya ate the food he bought from the street, and Naruto ate homemade food. Jiraiya swallowed to relieve the heat in his stomach, and Naruto spit out a noisy cicada on the tree. Jiraiya looked at the ancient city and said gloomily, "It's so hot today." Naruto replied, "The cicada on the tree is also a bit annoying." You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.